After the defeat of the unexpected sixth dragon, Dogramag, and the revelation of Selene's true motives. Now, an unlikely alliance between Diabolos and Fairy Tail forms, seeking information on the remaining dragon gods and Athena. The question remains, can they overcome a conceptual dragon with no physical form? Let's find out. The conflict between the Diabolos and Fairy Tail Guild members had come to an end, and they agreed to work together. Diabolos, along with Selene, would search for the missing Athena, while the Fairy Tail Guild members would look for Viernes and Ignia. They bid farewell to each other. Gray reminded Selene not to bother her human guildmates too much, addressing her as the new master. Selene asked Misaki if she was a bother, to which Misaki replied that she wasn't. Haku wasn't bothered either, but he mentioned Selene had crushed their previous master. Scarian told him that it wasn't something to talk about anymore. Selene admitted that she truly didn't know if there was another way to apologize to the guild, but was interrupted by Kyria, who said she felt better after that. Madmol agreed, noting that even though what Selene did wasn't good, their former master was unusual. Kieran thought that despite being cared for by the old master, he couldn't stand his power harassment. Misaki added that the sexual harassment was even more terrifying, while Suzaku commented, "Nonetheless, it cannot be helped. It concluded the reign of a tyrant." Carla was surprised by their harsh words. Selene invited them to visit anytime. Lucy agreed, and Urza thanked Selene for her help. Haku bid farewell to Wendy, who felt awkward, while Gajeel smiled, saying he had a good story to tell because of the events, to which Lily agreed. Meanwhile, Laxus and Kieran's rivalry was still unresolved. Laxus warned Kieran that he would crush him next time. They parted ways, with Natsu saying, "See ya?" Selene responded, "Indeed," on the side. Eleftheria remained silent, prompting Hikage to ask if something was wrong. Eleftheria replied that nothing was wrong and smiled, telling Selene that he looked forward to their next meeting. Selene also echoed the sentiment, calling him the ever-warring one. Eleftheria then addressed the Fairy Tail Guild members and asked if they had any leads on finding Viernes and Ignia. He inquired about their plans. Natsu, with a straight face, replied that they didn't have any. Eleftheria was surprised by this. For now, they planned to return home to gather more intel. Thus, they made their way back to the Fairy Tail Guild. As usual, the guild was bustling with noise and activity. Happy and Natsu were especially excited, noting how long it had been since they were last home. The siblings Mira-Jane, Elfman, and Lee-Sana welcomed them back and asked how they were. Natsu couldn't help but jump for joy. He then went straight to Master Makarov and asked how he was holding up, jokingly asking if he had become a fossil yet. Happy chimed in, saying that Makarov would become a mummy, not a fossil. Natsu laughed, remarking how smart Happy was. Master Makarov replied that it hadn't been that long since they last saw each other. Jet mentioned it had only been a few days since they spoke, to which Troy agreed, saying they were in the city above the dragon. Kana noted that nothing could beat the smell of the guild. Macau agreed, saying it's because they drank every day. Lucy observed that whether they were in another city or at their guild, the noise level of Fairy Tail remained unchanged. Juvia's face lit up with delight as she saw Gray again. She hugged him tightly, calling him Gray-sama. Juvia admitted that she thought about him so much that her form changed into Gray's. Gray was shocked, recalling the event, and scratched his head, trying to explain. Juvia asked if Gray had taken on her form, but he couldn't answer. Meanwhile, Max, Warren, and Vijeter greeted Wendy with smiles, commenting on how she had grown taller in the few days they hadn't seen her. Wendy replied that she hadn't changed, but Jonah, while painting, agreed with the others, saying she seemed more grown up. Wendy was puzzled and started contemplating what it meant to be grown up. Carla clarified that it simply meant Wendy was growing little by little. Wendy laughed at this. The Thunder God tribe greeted Laxus, surprised at his sudden disappearance. He apologized for making them worry, while Master Makarov called out to him. Laxus held his chest, knowing that Makarov had noticed that he had removed the lacrima his father had implanted in him. He had believed it was the source of his magic power, but he was mistaken. When he removed it, he discovered his true power. The Thunder God tribe felt proud of him, acknowledging him as the strongest. Evergreen couldn't believe that all this time, Laxus hadn't been using his full power. Hearing this, Alzak commented that he was truly a monster. Levy, on the other hand, was upset with Gajeel for making her worry. Gajeel apologized profusely, explaining that he didn't know what had happened either. He joked, but Levy didn't understand it. Lily was surprised that the usually sharp and witty Gajeel had made such a lame joke. Levy then reminded him that he's going to be a father. Gajeel smiled and said that she was going to be a mother as well. She blushed and Gajeel hugged her. Seeing this, Lily couldn't help but feel happy for them. At the table, Natsu was laughing as he recounted how Lucy's butt gotten stuck in the wall of the labyrinth. Lucy was shocked and told him not to tell that story. Macau, clearly drunk, said that just thinking about it turned him on. Lucy was annoyed and told them not to imagine it. Curious, they asked what happened next and if he tapped it. Natsu was surprised and asked if they were perverts. He said he pulled her out, but not before watching for a bit because it was funny. Romeo commented that it didn't sound like Natsu did anything different. The celebration continued with everyone enjoying themselves, eating, arguing, and having fun. Lucy remarked from the side that they were really noisy, but it was never boring there. Amidst the chaos, Urza explained everything to their master and said their return was only temporary. They thought they might find a book about the 5 dragon gods in the guild library. However, Master Makarov responded that there weren't any. Urza insisted that if they looked, they might find something. But Makarov reminded her how many times the guild had been destroyed, and most of their old books were gone. Urza couldn't accept this, but Master Makarov started thinking about her request. The scene then shifted to the path leading to Lucy's house. Walking with Plu, Lucy mentioned it had been a long time since they'd been to the guild. Someone rowing a boat greeted her and warned her that the path she was taking was dangerous, but she didn't bother. Lucy was excited to go home since it had been a while since she visited her room. She remembered asking her landlady to keep the room clean. As she climbed the stairs, she recalled everything that had happened recently. It had been a month since she last went home. When she opened the door, she was shocked to see so many people inside. The members of Sabretooth were there, eating. Lucy's eyes widened when she saw them and asked why they were there. Meanwhile, Master Makarov thought about Sabretooth regarding Urza's request. Lucy couldn't believe what she saw and asked why they were in her room. Lecter replied that it's kind of a long story. Sting added that Lucy's landlady let them in. Yukino explained that they had visited Fairy Tale a few days ago, but there was no one there, Rogue added. Lucy thought it might have been the time when the White Wizard controlled everyone. Minerva said they felt careless and were told to wait a few days. When they were looking for an inn, Lucy's landlady referred them there. But Lucy replied it wasn't an inn. Lecter was surprised that a fairy tale wizard like her lived in such a small house. Lucy retorted that nobody asked for his opinion, and besides, it suits her. Minerva noted that her undies in the drawer were tasteless, and so Lucy told her not to rummage through her things. She couldn't believe Yukino allowed them to do that. Yukino apologized to her. Rogue asked if everyone had returned to Fairy Tale. Lucy answered that a lot had happened, but she was interrupted by Sting, who said they were leaving. It had been a long time since they saw Natsu. Lecter and Frosh were excited to see Happy and Carla. Back at the Fairy Tale Guild, Urza remarked that they were just talking about them. The Sabretooth Guild members had arrived. They read the letter Urza handed them. Urza said she had written it for them, but it seemed she didn't need to worry anymore. After reading it, Minerva said it was better that she didn't send it. It sounded like a challenge. Master Makarov recalled that Sabretooth had the greatest library on the continent. Sting was surprised that he knew about it. Lecter explained that the pride of their guild was the Great Study Hall of Saber. Rogue questioned why they wanted to conduct research there. Meanwhile, Gray approached Frosh, mentioning that it had something to do with their current job. Rogue got annoyed and told him not to make that weird face at Frosh. Yukino apologized, saying that the Great Study Hall of Saber was not open to the public. But Natsu approached and said they were pals after all. Curious, he asked what a library was. Happy explained it was a place full of books. They used to have one too. Lucy was surprised when Natsu's excitement vanished upon hearing it was full of books. As the master of Sabretooth, Sting said they could lend it once, but it wouldn't be fun to give it for free. He suggested deciding it through a match. Natsu, all fired up, said, "Bring it on, Sting." But Sting replied that it wouldn't be fun if it was just a normal fight. Natsu was willing to accept the challenge. Sting told him to calm down because they would change it up. They would have a 5-on-5 game, with each round being a different game. Sting added that they would decide the content and rules. If Sabretooth lost 3 times, they would lend them the Great Study Hall of Saber. Urza thought they were at a disadvantage, but seemed to have no choice. With all that said, Sting mentioned they could choose their members. Gray was fine with it, and when he said she would do her best. The first round was an Exceed popularity contest, with Frosh representing Sabretooth. Lecter cheered for Frosh, telling him to win with his charm. Frosh promised to do his best. Wendy worried because the contest was exclusive to Exceeds. Carla didn't want to participate, and Lily commented that cuteness had nothing to do with him. Happy's eyes sparkled, and he said he was confident in his charm. Natsu cheered for Happy, saying he was strong. Thus, round 1 is Happy versus Frosh. Rogue confidently remarked that it was impossible for Frosh to lose. The rules of the game were simple. They would ask people in Magnolia who they thought was cuter through a street interview. Lucy pointed out that Magnolia was Happy's home turf, questioning the fairness of it. Happy smiled and said he wasn't worried. Despite his confidence, after the voting, he lost. Frosh was declared the round 1 winner. Rogue hugged Frosh and praised him. Minerva announced that the score was 1-0, much to Urza's annoyance. Happy, with tears in his eyes, lamented that he wasn't popular. Natsu declared that no one should care about what others say. When it comes to being blue, he is the strongest. Lucy wondered how that was supposed to be comforting. Round 2 was a shadow stepping contest against Rogue. Whoever stepped on their opponent's shadow first would win. Gray confidently volunteered, stating he was good at this game when he was a kid. But Juvia noted that Rogue was a wizard who controlled shadows. Gray grew concerned but was signaled to begin. As expected, Gray struggled to step on Rogue's shadow. Rogue laughed, saying it looked like he was going to win. Just as he was about to step on Gray's shadow, Gray came up with a plan. He used his ice make magic to create a mold of Frosh, preventing Rogue from stepping on his shadow. Rogue called it a dirty trick. This gave Gray the opportunity to step on Rogue's shadow, winning the round. The score was now 1-1. The third round was against Yukino, and it was a quiz. Lucy volunteered, confident in her intellectual abilities. Lecter presented the questionnaire and read the first question. What is the full name of Sabretooth member Olga? Yukino couldn't recall, but Lucy answered correctly, Olga Nanagia. The second question was about Sabretooth's annual festival. Again, Yukino couldn't answer. Lucy answered, Tiger 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 Food Festival. The third question was about Sabretooth member Rufus's secret technique. Lucy confidently answered, Frozen Black Lightning Sword, while Yukino was left blank. Since Lucy answered all the questions correctly, she won the round. 2-1, said Urza. Sting wondered how Yukino lost despite the advantage. Lecter was amazed by Lucy, and she explained that she used to be a reporter. Round 4 was an eating contest against Minerva. Sting proudly noted that this was Minerva's expertise. Urza accepted the challenge. Gray cautioned her not to overeat. She said she only needed motivation. As long as she imagined them as sweets, she can eat as much as she wants. Various dishes, including burgers and rice meals, were placed before them. Urza was stunned, and Minerva won the round. The score was now 2-2. Minerva had devoured many plates and still doesn't look full. Urza called her a monster. The fifth and final round was arm wrestling against Sting. If they defeated him, Fairy Tail would win. Natsu flexed his muscles, confident he wouldn't lose. The two got ready, with Lecter as the referee. They clasped hands and, at the signal, began their intense match. Their eyes locked while Natsu's hands started smoking, prompting Sting to complain. Sting used his white power to dispel the flames. Unfazed, Natsu used his Fire Dragon's arm wrestle power. Yukino and Minerva worried, asking if he has nothing left. Because of this, Sting countered with White Dragon's arm wrestle power. Lucy and Wendy were nervous and told Natsu to hang in there. Natsu then unleashed the Fire Dragon King's arm wrestle power, causing part of the guild to break apart. Sting couldn't withstand this and was knocked down. He praised Natsu for the win. As promised, they would lend the Great Study Hall of Saber to Fairy Tail. Urza thanked him, but Sting had one condition. Gray complained about this, saying they have already won. But Sting's condition was simple. They had to bring Jalal. Urza was shocked to hear this. Switching to the Eastern Fury Kingdom, in the city of Gazania, we see the location of the Wizard Guild Sabertooth. The Great Library Study Hall of Saber was extremely large, which greatly delighted Lucy and Wendy. They said there were so many books there. Sting mentioned that they had books from various parts of the world, from Alacatasia in the west to Giltina in the north. Lecter added that this was the great library that their guild prided itself on. Rogue then commented that, incidentally, Sting rarely reads any of them, and neither does Frosh. Urza couldn't believe that they even had books from Giltina there. She said it would be a tremendous help to them. However, due to the vast number of books, Gray pointed out that they would have difficulty searching through them. Yukino told them not to worry. She showed them a lacrima where they could search for the books they wanted. She said they could easily find what they were looking for using it. Natsu got excited to use it, while Happy suggested they search for a book on fish. Natsu searched and was surprised when a book suddenly flew from the shelf. He boasted that he was holding Lucy's book, although he hadn't read it yet. Lucy couldn't believe that even her book was there. Happy then requested a book about fish, but Carla hushed him. Minerva explained that in such cases, they could use keyword searches. She entered fish. There were so many books about fish that Happy became excited and started drooling. Carla reminded him that they were just books. Minerva explained that if the search range was too broad, it would be difficult to find what they were looking for. So, she recommended adding more keywords, such as fish, delicious, and cooking method. Excitement was evident on Natsu's face as he said they should play now. Lucy reminded him that it was a library, not a playground. Meanwhile, Gray was busy searching the lacrima for books about how to treat a woman right, Rain Woman, and being hit on. This made Wendy curious about what he was looking for. While the Fairy Tail members were discussing, someone sitting nearby told them to be quiet. Lucy was surprised to see that it was Serrano. She said they should be quiet in the library. Yukino called her Big Sister, while Lucy mentioned that it had been a long time since they last met. Serrano also signaled Gray to be quiet. She said he was in a library, and so he should act like it. Gray just scratched his head and noticed her two-piece outfit. Happy then told Gray, "You too." Serrano added that they were free to use Saber's study hall however they liked. Sting got annoyed and said that she wasn't the one to decide that. Lecter added that it was the authority of their master, Sting. Serrano continued, saying she would allow them, but shouldn't Jalal be with them? Urza replied that he was on his way. Urza couldn't believe that Serrano was the one who had business with Jalal. She confirmed this. Urza clarified that Serrano didn't need to go through her if she wanted to get in touch with Jalal. Serrano responded that it also involved Fairy Tail. Urza thought for a moment and told Lucy that she would leave the research to them. Lucy agreed, while Wendy asked if they had any books about the 5 dragon gods there. But Carla told her not to mention that loudly. Sting said to make sure they didn't make a mess, especially Natsu. He then saw Natsu on the floor, drawing like a child. Natsu replied, asking who Sting thought he was. Sting got annoyed because he had just told them not to make a mess in the library. And so, Rogue and Frosh volunteered to keep watch there. Minerva warned them that if they caused trouble, she would teleport them straight to the basement. Lucy was puzzled because Natsu had suddenly disappeared. In another room, Jalal, Urza, Sting, and Serrano were seen having a meeting. Serrano blushed when she noticed that Urza and Jalal looked alike. She asked when they were going to get married and how many children they wanted. They were surprised, wondering where that came from. They denied that there was anything between them. Serrano then hugged Sting, saying he was such a cool guy. She suggested that they should go out too, but Sting asked her to quit joking. Jalal broke into a sweat and asked what she meant by two. They insisted there was nothing between them. Serrano was curious, asking if Sting preferred Yukino or Minerva. He just replied that he was focused on Natsu. Jalal mentioned that it was time to get straight to the business they needed to discuss. Serrano asked what's with all the free time he's got, but he replied that he wasn't free. Serrano showed a picture of Toka. She remembered Jalal had been looking for that white wizard before. Jalal responded that he had already sorted it out. As he recalled, she had called herself Toka and infiltrated Fairy Tail. But the truth was that she was an Exceed from another world. The Exceed known as Toka was assimilated by a white magic priestess called Ferris, which is how she came to their world. Her goal was to save Alintier, a world overflowing with magic power. Because of that, she acted as a white wizard in their world. She took advantage of the disappearance of the leader of the Rebellious. This was an organization that believed in white magic. She infiltrated the Rebellious and took the position as leader. Serrano said he was right. Rebellious. The two were surprised. Serrano added that the white wizard herself said she wanted to rival the black wizard Zerif and the true founder of the Rebellious. Serrano confidently stated that she knew where she was. But Jalal replied it wasn't much of a threat now, unlike Toka. Serrano was surprised by this. She couldn't believe it, especially since she finally had intel for them. Sting commented, telling her not to get so worked up. So Jalal apologized to Serrano, saying that wasn't what he meant. Urza commented that the least they can do is listen. Because they were acting all high and mighty, Serrano decided not to tell him what she heard, and so Jalal begged her for the information. Because of this, Serrano said that she was in Gold Owl. It's an alchemy guild on the continent of Giltina. Urza was very surprised by this information. Jalal knew that Urza and her companions were traveling in Giltina. Urza confirmed, but they had only heard about Gold Owl recently. Serrano said that's where they would find the founder of the cult that worships white magic. And that was the white wizard named Athena. Again, Urza couldn't believe it, so Jalal asked what the problem was. Urza remembered what Elif Syria had said about Athena, the weapon capable of destroying even the 5 dragon gods. Urza then asked if it was the same name as the weapon. Serrano replied that Athena was the weapon. She was both the white wizard and the weapon. She was a doll made with alchemy, a living doll. Switching to inside the Gold Owl Guild, God Serena praised the Signario sisters. He said they were very beautiful, God beautiful. Russo thanked him for the compliment, but Eni drove him away, saying he was depressing. Eni asked why there was a wizard in an alchemy guild. It was hard to understand. Athena replied that there was something in common between the path of magic and alchemy. Russo then approached Athena and said that, last she checked, she was a wizard made from alchemy. Athena confirmed. Russo spoke to their master and asked for permission to end God Serena's life because he didn't get the Dogger Core. God Serena got nervous and begged them not to. Their master replied not to say that. There were other replacements for the Dogger Core. Things that would be needed to complete Athena. Athena responded, "Yes, master, I look forward to it." The Gold Owl Master added that once Athena was complete, all 5 dragon gods would become mere slaves to him. His name, by the way, was Duke Barbaroa. We then see the Blast Sea, north of Ishgal. Because Fairy Tale needed information about Athena, they went to Giltina again. They would search for the alchemist guild called Gold Owl. Athena was said to be a living doll that was part of that guild. She was also a weapon with enough power to defeat the 5 dragon gods. While sailing, Lucy asked why the Sabertooth members had joined them. Yukino replied that they have never been to Giltina before, so they wanted to visit it at least once. Because of that, they also boarded the ship, Minerva added. Sting and Rogue were extremely seasick and lying on the floor. They said it had been a while since they'd seen Natsu, so they decided to help. Lecter mentioned that once Sting decides on something, he sees it through. While on the ship, it was clear that the Dragon Slayers Natsu and Wendy were not okay either. Natsu said he would never ride a ship again. Gray was annoyed at the others joining and said it wasn't a vacation, but Urza just smiled, saying more allies were better. Jalal agreed with that, especially since the White Wizard was said to be on the same level as Zeref. Happy was surprised that even Jalal was with them. Carla asked if he had only come to stay by Urza's side. Jalal blushed and replied that wasn't his reason. Minerva summarized all the information they had. The White Wizard Athena was a doll created as a weapon. An Elefsiria's disciple made her. Yukino was curious about what happened to that disciple. Urza said it happened 100 years ago, so they heard she died already. Lucy pondered, because even Elefsiria didn't know that Athena was the weapon. He knew about her, but had never seen her. Jalal clarified that Athena was born as a weapon and eventually formed the white magic cult called Rebellious. Gray couldn't quite imagine how a doll could stand over people. Jalal added that Athena suddenly left, and now she was a member of an alchemy guild. Minerva commented that they clearly didn't know the whole story. Yukino added that the Gold Owl Guild must be famous in the northern continent. Lucy agreed. Based on Diabolo's reaction, Gold Owl seemed to be a big deal. But Minerva couldn't believe they didn't know about Athena's existence. Gray thought that Athena might have been hidden or had only recently joined the guild. Whatever the case, Jalal said that Serrano got the intel in the city of Philin, so that's where they would go. Urza was excited to write a letter and asked if she should write to Celine, just in case. Lucy got nervous and volunteered to write the letter instead. On the side, Natsu didn't care. He just wanted the boat to stop. After the voyage, they finally arrived in Giltina, southeast, in the city of Philin. They disembarked and started searching. Lucy read that the city had veins of ore. It produced precious minerals used in alchemy. Sting and Rogue were curious about alchemy. They wondered if it had a connection to the guild. Meanwhile, Natsu and Wendy noticed vendors selling various stones. Wendy commented on how beautiful they were. Happy checked them out and asked if Gajeel could eat gems too. But Carla clarified that iron and gems were different. Minerva suggested they find lodging, while Yukino was excited to look for a cafe in the city. Gray was surprised they were in the mood for sightseeing, but Frosh said he was too. The city was unique. Sting checked out some shops, while Minerva and Yukino had coffee. Gray and Wendy walked around with the Exceeds. Gray asked why the Sabertooth members had come with them, and when he said it was okay sometimes, Carla then reminded Gray about his clothes. His mood suddenly changed when he noticed Frosh and said how cute he was. Carla was irritated with Gray and told him to fix his expression, but Wendy assured Carla that she's cute too. That made her more irritated. Not far away, someone noticed Gray. It was the Gold Owl member, Sai. He remembered that Gray was part of the Fairy Tale Guild. Sai didn't expect to see him in that place. He remembered using the love bond on Gray, but with a gloomier blue-haired woman. Now, he's with a different girl. Moreover, Sai wondered what was with his expression and why he was shirtless. Sai was very annoyed and thought Gray changed women like he changed underwear, and so he called him a bastard. Elsewhere, Urza and Jalal were together. Urza didn't expect him to join them. He replied that he was the one who told Saber about the White Wizard. Urza then asked if Jalal had thought about joining Fairy Tail. He answered that he had considered it, but he had committed too many crimes. Urza pointed out that he had been pardoned. Jalal replied that it was a different matter. Urza seemed saddened by his answer. She asked Jalal how long he would keep punishing himself. He fell silent. Urza suggested he try to look at it again, but Jalal said he had looked everywhere. Because of this, Urza said that wasn't true because he couldn't see who was next to him. Jalal didn't expect her to say that. Suddenly, someone called out to them from behind. He questioned if the two were on a date. The turbaned person asked if they wanted a picture as a souvenir of the place. They were surprised by the mention of a date and clarified it wasn't one. But the photographer pushed them into position and told them how to pose. He brought them closer and said they looked a bit stiff. He pointed the camera at them and said, "Say cheese." The two posed while the photographer looked at them differently. Suddenly, Urza and Jalal vanished like bubbles. They found themselves in a tight place and wondered if they had been trapped. The photographer just laughed. On the other side, Lucy was walking with Happy. Lucy asked how Natsu got lost. Happy replied that it seemed like they were the ones who were lost. Because of it, Lucy suggested that for now, they should gather information. Happy commented that Natsu wasn't really good at such things. A robed woman holding a lamp asked Lucy what information they were looking for. Her appearance was strange and scary, so Lucy and Happy got nervous and Happy suggested they leave. She introduced herself as the informant of that city. She asked again what they wanted to know. So Lucy asked if she knew anything about the alchemy guild called Gold Owl. She replied that of course she did. They were the greatest alchemy guild on that continent. Lucy then asked if she knew anyone named Athena there. The woman just laughed and said they were very interesting visitors. In another alley, Natsu was shouting and looking for Happy and Lucy. He couldn't believe they were lost. He tried to find them using his sense of smell, but Natsu commented that the place smelled strange as he couldn't smell Lucy. So he just continued wandering around. Two people were following him. Natsu heard their movements and prepared himself, even though his back was turned. He suddenly used his fist to attack them. However, there were other companions who also carried weapons. Natsu easily punched them and even knocked two of them together. Finally, he took them all down even though he was alone. Natsu was curious about who these men were. Suddenly, a large person appeared. He introduced himself as a Washida from the coal miners' guild called Gagarok, and he had more companions with him. Iwashida asked if Natsu was part of Fairy Tail, which puzzled Natsu. For companions were with Iwashida, all carrying weapons. He belittled the wizards, calling them gangly little twigs. He boasted that he could probably blow them away with just a sneeze. The word gangly reminded Natsu of Elfman, Laxus, and Droy. Natsu was curious about how Iwashida knew about their guild. Suddenly, they all shouted the Coal Miner Guild's code. Rule number 1 was to never forget to look up, down, left, and right for their safety. Only they could save their own lives. Rule number 2 was to always check their tools, as these were their partners. Rule number 3 was to dig like they meant it. If they don't dig, they were useless. Their faces then turned serious when mentioning rule number 4, which was to remove any obstacles in their way. Iwashida suddenly attacked Natsu with his enormous pickaxe, but Natsu managed to dodge. The strike was so powerful that it shattered the ground where Natsu had been standing. Iwashida continued his relentless attacks, but Natsu kept evading. Natsu asked if he had done something wrong. Iwashida, focused solely on digging, surprised Natsu. Iwashida said he was getting warmed up and that his heat pickaxe was forged with alchemy. Natsu remembered Lucy's advice to try read the atmosphere a little. He thought that he might not be aware of it, but he must have pissed Iwashida. Natsu decided that if Iwashida was challenging him to a fight, he would oblige. Iwashida raised his pickaxe and declared he was all warmed up now. Natsu questioned if he meant all fired up instead. Iwashida positioned to attack and threatened to kill Natsu, but his companion reminded him not to slay him as they needed to bring him back. However, Iwashita didn't hold back and targeted Natsu's face with his pickaxe. Surprisingly, the pickaxe melted upon contact with Natsu's cheek, which the Gaga Rock members hadn't expected. Natsu then said he's got a sneeze coming on, and when he did, he released an incredibly powerful fire. This surprised Iwashita and the others. The explosion was visible even from afar, burning Iwashita's and his companion's clothes. In the distance, others wondered about the source of the large plume of smoke. Meanwhile, the turban-wearing photographer declared that his job was done. Urza and Jalal were tightly trapped in a confined space. They pondered what kind of space it was, finding it difficult to move. Jalal apologized to Urza because his chin was positioned on her armor, precisely on her chest. And so, Urza considered removing her armor to allow them more space. She requipped but was not able to change her armor, resulting in both of them being shocked to find her naked. Jalal's face was pressed against her chest, and so he told her not to remove all her clothes, causing Urza to blush and ask what she was thinking. Instead, Urza used her clear heart clothing to avoid bulk in the tight space. Jalal was surprised to realize she could use magic there. Urza agreed, thinking they might be able to use it to escape. Meanwhile, Sai was following Gray and Wendy. Now that the two were far from their companions, Sai believed he wouldn't make any mistakes. He switched them to materials and used Material Bond. Gray, Carla, and Wendy were bewildered to find themselves suddenly transformed into jewels. They couldn't believe their bodies had changed. In a jewelry store elsewhere, shoppers were startled when the displayed jewels suddenly turned into people. Sai took the jewel forms of the three, saying he would now collect those jewels and return them to normal once they reached headquarters. Sai found this easier than expected. He wondered how his other teammates were faring in capturing the fairy tale members. The scene shifted to another location, showing a smoke-filled alley. This was where Lucy and Happy were, both tied up and unconscious. They were captured by the informant wearing a gas mask. At the end, Natsu returned and couldn't believe everyone else was late. He wondered why they got lost. Sting was surprised, as he expected Natsu to be the one to lose track of time, while Lily mentioned that Urza was usually punctual, which worried Rogue. None of them had returned yet, so Yukino suggested searching for them. But before that, Minerva was curious about something. She spoke to Natsu, mentioning that he had encountered a coal miner guild party. Natsu confirmed this, saying he had burned them. Minerva noted that before fighting, the coal miners confirmed he was from Fairy Tale. Moreover, they had equipment forged with alchemy. When Natsu asked what was concerning about this, Minerva explained that earlier that day, they must have noticed something while in the city. Frosch mentioned many holes, which Rogue corrected as coal mines. Lecter added that there were many jewel shops too. Sting also noticed numerous pharmacies in the area. Minerva agreed, stating that the city deals in many materials used for alchemy. As she suspected, the city seemed to have a deep connection to Gold Owl. When Natsu asked what this meant, Minerva suggested that the entire city might be monitoring Fairy Tale on Gold Owl's orders. Natsu was curious about the reason, but Minerva didn't know. It appeared the city was moving under Gold Owl's command. As a result, Natsu had fought the miners while others from Fairy Tale were captured. Sting couldn't believe this, wondering how Urza and Gray could be caught. Rogue agreed, thinking they couldn't be defeated. Minerva clarified that their opponents were alchemists. Unlike wizards, they weren't adversaries they could easily understand. This worried Natsu. Yukino questioned why Gold Owl would do this to Fairy Tale. Sting speculated it was because their guild had done many things. Lecter wouldn't be surprised if someone held a grudge against Fairy Tale. Natsu recalled his encounter with Iwashita, mentioning that his companion had said they needed to capture him, not kill him. He shared this with the others, surprising the Sabertooth members. The miners had mentioned plans to capture him. Angered, Natsu stood up and ran, saying he would save his friends. Sting stopped him, and Rogue pointed out that Natsu was the only one left from Fairy Tale. Therefore, they, the Sabertooth members, would help him. Natsu hesitated, saying he didn't want to join Sabertooth. Sting replied that no one was asking him to join them. Rogue added that they didn't want that either. Shifting to the coal mining guild Gagarok, where Natsu and the Sabertooth members had arrived, Iwashita was severely beaten. He pleaded for a break, admitting he was only following orders from Gold Owl. Natsu asked why he had kidnapped his friends and where the others were, but Iwashita claimed he knew nothing about that. He pointed to the Gold Owl Guild, reiterating that he had merely followed orders to capture wizards from Fairy Tail. When Natsu asked where the Gold Owl Guild was, Iwashita directed them to leave town and head north. As Natsu turned to leave, Minerva stopped him, saying his methods were too lukewarm. She suddenly stepped on Iwashita's head, claiming he was still hiding something. Natsu was shocked by her action. Minerva stated she wasn't naive, while Sting and Rogue added that they wouldn't just let those who hurt Natsu's friends go. They insisted Iwashita tell them everything he knew. Yukino tried to calm them down, but Lecter emphasized the seriousness of the situation. Intimidated by the Sabertooth members, Iwashita became nervous. Sabertooth then engaged in battle with Gagarok. Minerva took down numerous opponents, and Sting and Rogue did the same. Yukino was anxious, and Natsu was puzzled. As coal miners' bodies piled up, Natsu asked if they just wanted to go wild there. Sting replied that he wasn't like Natsu. Minerva said, thanks to their actions, they now knew where everyone had been taken. Yukino was surprised to learn that they had been separated and taken to different locations. Sting asked if their rampage wasn't justified. Natsu admitted that for a moment, he felt like he was with Fairy Tail. He said Minerva resembled Urza, which he couldn't believe. He added that Yukino was like Lucy, and Lecter and Frosh were like Wendy and Carla. They were confused by this, with Frosh insisting he was Carla. Natsu compared Rogue to Gray. Sting thought he was Natsu's counterpart, but Natsu said Sting was happy, which made Sting ask why. Natsu explained that, thinking about it, members like them weren't so bad after all. He then asked Sting say, I like happy, but Sting complained he wouldn't do that. Natsu enticed him with a fish, and so Sting suddenly said, I. He couldn't believe he had complied with Natsu's request. Rogue stated this wasn't the place to mess around, and the same applied to Natsu. Natsu then scratched his head and said everyone will be fine. Minerva was puzzled because earlier at the inn, Natsu were so beside himself. She asked what had happened. Natsu replied that, of course, he would rescue them, but thinking about it, his guildmates were probably just caught off guard. He told them not to underestimate his friends. Sting agreed, mentioning that Jalal and Urza were together. Rogue was sure those two would easily escape once they regained their senses. Yukino also found it reassuring to know that Wendy and Gray were together. Frosh added that Carla was with them too. But Lecter said the problem was Lucy and Happy. Natsu got annoyed, asking what Lecter thought of them. Sting clarified that wasn't the issue. He asked if Natsu knew what happened to beautiful women when they were captured. Natsu's face showed curiosity. He imagined Lucy being tickled by many hands, but Sting said it was better not to mention that. He and Minerva whispered about what they thought might happen to Lucy. They blushed at the thought, including Yukino, who called out to them. Natsu, annoyed, said their guild had a sick imagination and started running. When they called after him, he said he was going to save Lucy and Happy. He told Lucy's lookalike, Yukino, and Happy's counterpart, Sting, to come with him. But again, Sting complained that he didn't seem like Happy. The two joined Natsu, leaving Minerva and Rogue behind. Since Minerva was like Urza, she decided to go where Urza and Jalal were. Consequently, Lecter suggested that Rogue, who was like Gray, should team up with him, resembling Wendy, and Frosh as Carla. Rogue then cautioned Minerva to be careful. Minerva just smiled, saying she had the easiest course, going after Urza and Jalal. She wondered if they even needed help to be rescued. The scene then shifted to the outskirts of Philin City, in the Delterra forest, where a small house owned by the turban-wearing photographer was visible. The photographer was humming while displaying a picture on his house wall. It was a photo of Urza and Jalal. Inside the picture, Urza said that no matter what magic she used, they couldn't seem to escape. Jalal was curious about where they had ended up. Urza explained that the moment their picture was taken, they were locked in that place. Jalal was shocked, yelling when he realized they were inside a photograph. Urza blushed and told Jalal not to shout into her chest, as her body was twitching. Jalal apologized. He then mentioned that he had never heard of such magic before. Urza questioned if it was even magic, but the photographer replied that it was alchemy. He added that their magic power would be used as alchemic material, emphasizing how wonderful it is. Meanwhile, Natsu was seen running through the forest with Sting and Yukino. Natsu was concerned for Lucy and Happy, imagining various scenarios they might be in. He was furious, wondering who these people thought they were to do such things. Behind him, Sting commented that Natsu was becoming delusional, but Yukino blamed Sting for this. Elsewhere, a light was visible inside a cave. This was where Lucy and Happy were imprisoned, while their guard was eating. Lucy asked what she was doing, and she replied that, as they could see, she was eating dried potatoes. Lucy and Happy were weirded out by the sound of her eating, with Happy feeling frightened. Lucy asked what the point was in kidnapping them. The informant simply replied, "Who knows?" with a smile. Lucy questioned if she had lied when introducing herself as an informant. The woman answered no, that part was true. She explained that was how she obtained the information that Gold Owl wanted wizards from Fairy Tale. Anyone who caught them would be paid handsomely. Meanwhile, at the Alchemy Guild of Gold Owl, Rogue, Frosh, and Lecter had arrived. Rogue stated that no matter how they looked at it, they had the most difficult course. Frosh agreed. Lecter added that they were at the enemy's HQ, and even Rogue couldn't handle it alone. Rogue acknowledged this, but thought if they could rescue Gray and Wendy, they might find a way. He asked the two Exceeds to stay put while he used his shadow magic to scout the area. He saw Gray and Wendy surrounded by people. Those present were surprised that these were the talked-about Fairy Tale Guild members. One couldn't believe how young they were. Another questioned why the guy is naked. They were curious if these wizards truly had impressive magic. Gray, Wendy, and Carla were seen kneeling before them, tied up, while in shadow form, Rogue called out to them. Someone then asked Sai if these were the only ones he had caught. Sai replied that there were more, and he was on his way to get them. Gray told their captors that now that they had challenged Fairy Tale, they should know what would happen next. Wendy, Gray, and Carla were being mocked by those surrounding them. This made Rogue feel irritated. Wendy was trying to figure out what they could do and asked Carla, but she was struggling to break free and noticed how difficult it was due to the rope they used. Sai explained that the rope was transmuted using a magic sealing stone, which nullifies magic. Nevertheless, as Gray attempted to remove it, it surprisingly snapped suddenly. The same thing happened to the ropes binding Wendy and Carla, which puzzled them. They were startled when Rogue appeared, revealing that he was responsible for cutting the ropes. He said that they had gone to great lengths to turn it into rope, but if they had just left the stone as it was, it wouldn't have been cut so easily. Gray was surprised and asked what he was doing there. Because of this, Sai's companions couldn't believe what had happened. They wondered where Rogue had come from and if he was also part of Fairy Tale. Rogue replied not to lump him in with them. He raised his left hand and cast a shadow dragon slash, which sent the men flying. They were irritated by his actions, while Gray thanked Rogue for rescuing them. He then helped out by using his ice make lance magic to defeat the enemies. Meanwhile, Wendy was curious about where they had been taken. Lecter and Frosh quickly approached, saying that this was the headquarters of the Alchemy Guild, Gold Owl. Lecter then pointed out the direction to Carla. The Gold Owl members were furious with the wizards. However, they were unable to retaliate as Rogue punched them from behind and Gray kneed one of them. Wendy, who was attacked by 4 Gold Owl members, prepared to release a powerful Sky Dragon's roar. Gray just smiled and asked what the big deal was with alchemy, as their opponents were so weak. Rogue, in a serious tone, told him to stay on guard. He sensed something different from magic power there. The anxiety was evident on Sai's face, but some men came out to meet them. They said they've really done a number on them. It would be shameful if they rampaged using the materials they brought. One of them said it couldn't be avoided. The ninja-like figure added that it was now their turn. Sai was pleased to see them and called them Genai and Kotetsu. But Gray was puzzled by this. Genai told Sai to stand back, while Kotetsu was worried about the materials. Gray and Onii then asked what materials they were referring to. Sai explained that the magic power of wizards is a very important alchemy material. He admitted that he had reported what happened in the Dogremag labyrinth, which interested their master. Genai called out to him, but Sai continued speaking. He added that their master wanted a wizard from Fairy Tail. Genai shouted and called out to him again. Because of this, Sai suddenly turned into smoke. This shocked Gray. Not far away, the Exceeds were also concerned because even the people around Sai were gradually turning into smoke. Genai told Sai to stand back and be quiet. Gray was surprised to see smoke magic, to which Genai replied that it wasn't magic, but smoke alchemy, to be precise. Meanwhile, back at the cave, Sting, Yukino, and Natsu were running straight to rescue Lucy and Happy. They hoped they were safe. They were in a hurry, and the informant was surprised to see Natsu rushing in. The informant was worried while Lucy and Happy were happy to see the three coming to their rescue. Natsu's first question was whether any indecency had been done to them and if they were okay. Lucy was surprised by this question and said they were fine. Sting then grabbed the informant and called her Granny. He asked if she was the one who kidnapped them, but she begged him to stop, saying he surely wouldn't hurt a weak old woman like her. Natsu patted Sting and moved him aside. He suddenly sent the old woman flying with his fist, saying that if she messed with his friends, he didn't care if she was old or young. Everyone was shocked by what he did to the old woman. Finally, Lucy and Happy were out of their confinement, and Lucy thanked Natsu. Sting approached the injured informant. Natsu told Sting that he could play with the old woman if he wanted in his place, but Sting replied that he'd pass. Yukino asked why they wanted to capture Lucy and the others. Happy answered that Gold Owl wanted wizards from Fairy Tail. Natsu was curious about the reason. Suddenly, someone answered and clarified that Gold Owl desired the magic power of Fairy Tail wizards. A woman appeared before them, and Natsu's group asked who she was. She replied that she was Athena and that she was there to pick up the prisoners. They were shocked to hear that she was Athena, the powerful weapon they had been searching for. Suddenly, Natsu began to cry, which puzzled him. Lucy was also crying and couldn't understand why. All of them were in tears and confused about why they suddenly felt sad. They couldn't stop crying. Athena then explained that she had transmuted their tears, and that was her power. Finally, they met Athena. However, using her powers, she made the Fairy Tail and Sabertooth Guild members sob uncontrollably. Lucy asked what kind of magic it was while wiping her tears. Athena clarified that it wasn't magic, but alchemy. She had transmuted their tears. Lucy accused her of lying, stating that alchemy involves mixing different ingredients. At least, that's what she thought of when alchemy was mentioned. Suddenly, smoke could be seen coming from Natsu, which puzzled Athena. Natsu's tears had evaporated, and he said she was one interesting lady. Sting and Yukino were surprised and impressed by what he did. Using his flames, Natsu had evaporated his tears. Natsu admitted to Athena that they came there because they were looking for her. This surprised Athena. Lucy explained that they had heard she had the power to defeat the 5 dragon gods. Natsu added that, in truth, he didn't care about her powers. He just wanted to know where to find the remaining 2 dragon gods, Ignia and Viernes. Athena didn't respond while Sting and the others wondered. They realized that Natsu's objective was the 5 dragon gods. Natsu and Lucy became nervous when they realized they had mentioned the 100 Years Quest. Athena closed her eyes and said, "I see." She said she understood the situation, but she was an alchemist from Gold Owl. She was under her master's orders, and her mission was to capture a fairy tale wizard. Lucy was curious about why they wanted to capture them. Athena replied that she didn't need to answer that. Happy then asked why someone like her, who could defeat the 5 dragon gods, was in Gold Owl. Furthermore, Sting pointed out that she was called a white wizard, so she was a wizard, not an alchemist. Again, Athena simply replied that she didn't need to answer that. Natsu just laughed and asked if this meant they just needed to kick her butt. Yukino was concerned in the background, saying she didn't think that was necessary. Nevertheless, Natsu was determined to get answers from Athena. Lucy told Natsu that they were facing a machine, and Happy reminded him not to destroy Athena. Natsu said again that even without powers like Athena's, he would defeat Ignia and Viernes. Natsu prepared himself, saying that woman had messed with Fairy Tale, so he was going to slug her. Athena just smiled in response to this. Switching back to Gold Owl, Gray, Rogue, and Wendy were now facing Genai and Kotetsu. Genai brought out a huge pipe and said he could transmute smoke. Gray asked if it was like smoke-making magic. He pointed the pipe at him and asked if he should teach Gray the difference between alchemy and magic. Suddenly, smoke enveloped the surroundings. Carla and Lecter closed their eyes and started crying because of it. They couldn't see anything, while Frosh seemed to enjoy the smoke. Although surrounded by smoke, Rogue said not to underestimate dragon slayers like him. Wendy admitted that they could identify where they were just using their sense of smell and hearing. Just then, Kotetsu suddenly appeared behind Rogue and punched him. It hit his arms, which suddenly fell to the ground. He couldn't believe how heavy his arms had become. Kotetsu admitted that he transmuted iron. Indeed, when Rogue looked, his arm had suddenly turned to iron. He suddenly remembered what Gajeel had said before about him having a connection to iron. Gray then ordered Wendy to blow away the smoke. She agreed and suddenly sucked it in using her Sky Dragon's magic. However, she just coughed. Carla scolded her and asked why she inhaled it. She told her to use normal wind magic instead. Wendy apologized while crying and coughing. So, she used her Sky Dragon wing attack. However, it still had no effect. Gray couldn't believe it didn't work. Genai appeared beside him and said that this was the kind of smoke he transmuted. He swung at Gray with the pipe, but Gray dodged and used Ice Make Hammer to counterattack. Genai blocked it with the pipe, and he easily turned that hammer into smoke. He said he could turn anything into smoke. Gray was shocked by this. Genai then pointed out the difference between alchemy and magic. They don't consume magic power to perform alchemy. Whether using a tool or material, that's what they use to transmute. In other words, it's more cost-effective than what wizards do. For example, a wizard starts a fight with 100% strength, but it decreases every time they use magic. It consumes magic power, and gradually, their strength diminishes. Because of this, compared to wizards, alchemists' strength doesn't deteriorate. So they, alchemists, can always fight at 100%. Kotetsu attacked Rogue again, but he blocked it with his arm. Gray said that even if alchemists fight, they'd run out of stamina, and they keep the damage they sustain. It's impossible for them to always be at 100%. Genai clarified that he and Kotetsu weren't configured with stamina. The 3 exceeds on the side were confused by what he said and what configured means. Someone suddenly answered that it meant they were infinite. Gray and the others were surprised, as a new enemy had appeared. They called him Master. Because of this, Rogue figured out that he was the master of the Gold Owl Guild. The newcomer admitted that Genai and Kotetsu were mechanical dolls he had made. Wendy and the others were shocked to realize that they were just dolls, but they looked like humans. The man with an eye patch just smiled and apologized for being late. He introduced himself as Duke, the master of Gold Owl. He said he was a former disciple of Eleftheria and the alchemist who created Athena. They were surprised by Duke's arrival. Gray couldn't believe that he was the one Eleftheria mentioned as his pupil. They had thought he was dead. Duke asked what exactly they had heard from Eleftheria. The Exceeds thought about it and realized Eleftheria hadn't actually mentioned anything specific. Duk admitted that he was an alchemist who creates people. He said his profession was transmuting humans. He explained that he had trained as a wizard under Eleftheria, but seemed to lack talent for it. So, he left the one he called Old Fool and tried alchemy instead. When Duk became famous, he said Eleftheria visited him. He begged Duk to create a weapon to slay the 5 dragon gods. As a result, Athena was created, Duk's first human transmutation and what he called his greatest work. Genai was envious and said it wasn't fair. Kotetsu couldn't accept that they weren't Duk's best creations. Duk looked at them and said they were also his pride in alchemy. They were even closer to being human. Athena was Duk's first creation. That's why her construction was inadequate. However, her imperfections weren't a problem. But Athena betrayed their expectations, escaped, and suddenly vanished. They had only just seen her only recently. Genai replied that they hadn't expected Athena to end up in Ishgar. Rogue then was curious if Athena was disgusted with herself for being created as a weapon. Duk responded that Athena had no emotions. He said she only tried to become human, and as a result, she became the White Wizard. Wendy was puzzled that in Athena's attempt to become human, she instead became the White Wizard. Gray said it didn't make sense. Carla then recalled, Athena started the white magic cult called Rebellious. Lecter wondered what that had to do with becoming human. Duk admitted that he didn't understand it either. However, while Genai and Kotetsu were human, Athena was just a doll. Duk's desire was to complete Athena, and Athena wanted to become human. Duk said they needed their help to fulfill these dreams. But Gray wasn't pleased with this statement. Back in the cave, Athena suddenly released a laser beam at those present. Natsu pushed Lucy, and Sting pushed Yukino to save them and avoid the attack. The laser beam, coming from Athena's eyes, visibly damaged the cave. She continued firing at them using her laser beam. This caused a massive explosion, visible in the middle of the forest. The cave was destroyed, and Natsu wondered what was going on with her as the laser beam suddenly came out of her eyes. Amidst the rubble and smoke, Athena floated, surprising Natsu. Athena stated that she's a doll, an alchemist, and she's also the White Wizard. She attacked again using her laser beam eyes, but Sting just swallowed it with his mouth. Athena couldn't believe what he did. Even so, Sting didn't seem hurt. He said if it's white, then he can easily eat it. Yukino was pleased and said it was as expected of Sting. While Lucy couldn't believe his ability to eat anything white, Natsu thought he might be able to eat erasers too, and Happy agreed. Sting just smiled while Athena looked troubled by his ability. Let's move to the photographer's house. Inside the photo, Urza and Jalal were still struggling because it was extremely cramped. Moreover, they had been stuck in the same position for a while. Urza wondered what they could do. Suddenly, someone arrived and commented on how pathetic the situation was. The wizards representing their continent were all together in one place. The photographer and Urza were surprised by this. The photographer asked who she was, but suddenly he was placed into the photo. This shocked him. Meanwhile, Urza and Jalal fell to the ground. We then see it was Minerva who arrived, saying she switched their positions using her territory magic. Urza was surprised to see her, and Jalal asked her how she found them. Minerva apologized, saying it looked like they were enjoying themselves. This made the two move away from each other. Inside the photo, the photographer was confused about what was happening and how he got there. Jalal acknowledged Minerva's rescue, and Urza apologized to her. Minerva just replied, "Don't mention it." Minerva kicked the photo and said they surely had questions for the person trapped inside. Urza agreed, while the photographer couldn't believe he saw her striped underwear. Urza mentioned that he had said the gold owl wanted Fairy Tail's magic power. However, the photographer swore he didn't know anything else. So Urza pulled the photo and asked what would happen if they tore it. The person inside screamed for help. Jalal said he should tell them everything he knows. However, The photographer repeated that was all he knew. Nothing more. A woman in heels who had just arrived said that was correct. Urza and the others were surprised, and Urza even dropped the photo. The photographer recognized her and called her Onii. Russo said she was the one who made that camera, while Onii said since they escaped, they had no use for that man anymore. Jalal then asked who they were, and so Russo took out binoculars and said she saw it. Jalal was shocked as the surroundings suddenly changed. Urza noticed the environment was distorting, and Minerva couldn't believe those women restructured the entire room. The whole place seemed to have become an amusement park, and Russo said she saw an extremely fun world. While looking around, Urza couldn't understand what was happening. Russo introduced herself, saying they were the Signario sisters, alchemists from the Gold Owl. Onii added that their power was to transmute the world. They were surrounded by large doll-like figures, which got the wizards curious. Jalal commented that they were in a cabin just moments ago. Urza wondered if they had been transported to another world. Russo was amused by their reactions. As she had mentioned, it was alchemy, and she had transmuted the world. Jalal was shocked when he realized it was world transmutation. Urza asked if she had created this place. Russo proudly stated, asking if they didn't think her taste was excellent. She called it a psychopop amusement park, naming it the Dream Death World. Minerva remarked that the name was ridiculous. Russo then added that the worlds transmuted by her sister, Onii, were also there, but she promptly silenced her. Urza questioned why they needed to change the scenery. Russo was surprised that they still didn't understand the reason. She explained that this world was created by her and for her alone. Jalal and the others glanced behind them and noticed an enormous teddy bear. It suddenly attacked them with its sharp hands. They were startled to see the doll moving. The impact of the teddy bear's fist was incredibly strong. Russo declared herself a god, a cutie god. They managed to dodge the bear's attack, and Minerva stated that it didn't matter if her dolls could move. She used her territory magic to make the giant teddy bear in front of her vanish. The doll disappeared like a bubble, but Russo wasn't going to give up. She announced that her next attack would be the dancing flower show. Suddenly, flowers with strange faces sprouted from the ground and bloomed. Jalal was disturbed by their appearance. Meanwhile, Urza equipped and used her Fire Emperor armor to slice through the large flowers. Russo then raised her hand and waved her fingers, saying that next would be the merry-go-round. A horse-like structure suddenly appeared from the ground, surprising Minerva. They were surrounded by horses, resembling a merry-go-round ride. Minerva deflected a horse figure with her elbow. As Urza was also attacked, Jalal instructed them to split up. He used his meteor magic, enabling him to fly swiftly through the air and knock down all the horse figures there. He shattered and destroyed them. Russo was impressed by their skills, and Onii remarked that their reputation as wizards seemed justified. But Russo couldn't accept this. She said they came from where God Serena was, claiming he was the best in that continent. Russo retorted that only God Serena said that about himself. Moreover, she added that their master and Athena were also wizards. So, Onii told Russo not to underestimate them. She agreed and said she'd try a different attack next. As she moved her fingers, numerous balloons emerged from below and floated up. Russo called them balloon bombs, surprising Minerva and the others. A powerful explosion ensued from these balloons, sending Urza and her companions flying. Minerva commented enough with the joking. She prepared her territory magic, asking if they thought they could defeat someone with dominion over space like her. Suddenly, she switched places with Onii, who was beside Russo. Onii was confused to find herself on Jalal's side. Russo couldn't believe Minerva had managed to switch positions with her sister. Minerva then took a stance and struck her forcefully from behind. However, she just smiled, surprising Minerva with her reaction. She seemed to deflate like a balloon rising into the air. Minerva was puzzled by this. The same happened to Onii. Both had turned out to be balloons, and Urza couldn't believe they were just fakes. Russo said they still hadn't realized everything. She revealed herself as an enormous figure, declaring again that this was her world and she was the god, the cutie god. Minerva couldn't accept this and was shocked when she suddenly stepped on her. Urza was then concerned for Minerva. Russo smiled after defeating Minerva. Jalal and Urza couldn't believe it, but it was too late. Happiness was evident on Russo's face, but suddenly someone asked how long she would keep grinning like an idiot. The figures there were surprised, while Russo's mood suddenly changed. The speaker said that she was the wizard with power over space. Urza recognized that voice as Minerva's. Russo looked around to find her. Minerva revealed that she was actually inside Russo's body. Minerva said that it was a big mistake for Russo to make herself so large in her presence. She then prepared to attack and apologized and warned that what she was about to do might be a bit grotesque. Minerva enchanted and cast a very powerful magic. Suddenly, something that looked like a god appeared from Russo's stomach. Urza smiled while Jalal was impressed by the magic of the Yakuma 18 battle gods. Russo was clearly hurt by that attack as her body was torn apart. However, when her head fell to the ground, another Russo appeared, which surprised Minerva. She said that it was obvious that the giant wasn't the real Russo. Furthermore, she reminded her that this place was a dream world. Russo then moved her hand to counterattack. Because of that, Minerva's body was wrapped in chains. Russo said that anything was possible in that place. Even Urza and Jalal were chained. They asked what was happening. Meanwhile, Minerva screamed because Russo suddenly transformed her into a small and cute animal figure. But the same thing happened to Urza and Jalal. Russo was delighted, saying how cute they were. Her older sister Onii asked her how long she was going to play. Urza couldn't believe what was happening, saying she couldn't use her magic. Jalal was worried about their situation. Minerva knew that as long as they were trapped in that strange space, it would be difficult for them to win. Russo held a bow aimed at them and said, "Let the hunt begin." So the three ran as Russo started shooting at them. They wondered what Russo had done to them. Returning to the Gold Owl Guild, Gray and the others were now facing the Gold Owl Master, Duke. Once again, he stated that he wanted to make Athena human, and that was what she wanted too. He mentioned that they needed their help to fulfill their dream. Rogue asked what kind of help they needed. Lecter couldn't believe that it seemed they didn't need to fight them in the first place, but Carla called him an idiot. The Gold Owl Guild members had kidnapped Wendy and the others. Gray agreed. They couldn't back down while being underestimated. Wendy added that they wouldn't help them. Duke said that for now, he was the only one who had control over Athena. He asked if they were sure they wanted Athena as an enemy. Gray then questioned if this meant they needed magic to make Athena perfect. But as Duke had said, he had no aptitude for magic, so he needed wizards to gather it. But Gray pointed out that God Serena was there. It was hard to believe, but he was the top wizard of their continent. God Serena suddenly appeared and asked if they had summoned him. Gray and the others were surprised by his sudden appearance. And as usual, he started posing, saying that although it might not be obvious, he was also just a doll. They were shocked by this statement. Gray asked if his loud and annoying posing was really necessary. Frosh tried to imitate God Serena, but Carla stopped him. Duke admitted that God Serena was also a doll that he had made from a corpse. He said it was true that God Serena had a lot of magic, but the magic of a dead wizard wouldn't help him perfect Athena. Genai added that they had tried to retrieve the Dogra cores to gather magic faster, but they were hindered by Fairy Tail. Gray was curious if they had a grudge against them, which was why they were doing this. No, Duke answered. It couldn't be just any wizard. He suddenly raised his right hand, and Rogue and Wendy were affected. Gray was worried for them. The two screamed in pain caused by Duke. Even the Exceeds were concerned about them. Wendy and Rogue collapsed on the ground as Duke seemed to have taken their power. Gray asked what he had done to them, and Duke replied that he wanted dragon magic. Rogue noticed that his power had been drained. In an instant, all of Wendy's power was absorbed. Lecter mentioned that Sting and Natsu were in danger too. Switching to Athena, she was still facing Natsu, Sting, Lucy, and Yukino. Athena recognized Sting Eucliffe, the White Dragon Slayer. Sting was surprised that she knew him. Because of this, Yukino was proud, saying Sting was famous. Lucy couldn't believe Yukino was crying over this. Happy admitted that Yukino was sometimes weird. Athena said she had thought about scouting Sting before to join the Rebellious, as a fellow white wizard, and so Sting blushed at this. He boasted to Natsu that he seemed to be more famous in that continent. However, Natsu was just irritated by his expression. Again, Yukino was thrilled by Sting's cute face. Lucy couldn't believe that's what she commented on. Suddenly, Athena turned her attention to Natsu. She said she also knew the Fire Dragon Slayer, son of Igneel. He was the most famous dragon slayer in Ishgal. Sting felt diminished by this, and Natsu suddenly said who cares about that. Natsu prepared his fist to attack Athena, but with a simple movement of her finger, she whited them out. The two dragon slayers felt different. They couldn't believe what had happened. Yukino and Lucy called out to them. Meanwhile, Happy remembered that this was what Toka or Ferris had used. Sting and Natsu slumped to the ground because of what Athena did. She said she would take their dragon power. While Natsu and Sting are on the ground, Yukino and Lucy prepared to help them. The two dragon slayers could no longer move because their magic power was gone. Happy was worried for them. But Athena was pleased when she got hold of their dragon powers. Athena said she would put that power into herself. However, Lucy said she wouldn't let that happen. She opened the gate of the Golden Bovine Palace, Taurus, and Taurus struck Athena hard. Yukino opened the gate of the Heavenly Scales, Libra, who also suddenly appeared to help. Because of this, Athena dropped the dragon powers and was surprised. Happy carried the powers and ran, but Athena chased him, and Lucy managed to knee her from behind. It was super effective and knocked Athena down. Athena got annoyed and suddenly took a stance. She attacked Happy from there, causing him to drop the dragon balls. Lucy was then concerned for Happy. Athena said she could easily use whiteout on their magic too, but perhaps she would make them suffer first. The two were ready to fight. Athena was suddenly curious about what she was feeling, which seemed like irritation, but she wondered because she had no feelings, so she couldn't identify it. Lucy was surprised by her statement about having no feelings. While Athena concluded that it must be irritation, her eyes lit up again and she released a laser beam directly at Lucy. Luckily, Lucy jumped and avoided it. Yukino was concerned for her, but she too was hit by Athena. Lucy prepared to use her Star Dress Mix Magic, Leo, and Virgo form. On the other hand, Yukino was impressed by what Lucy did and asked what technique that was. Lucy replied that she turned her spirit's magic into a dress and combined them. Lucy attacked, but Athena blocked it with her left hand. Lucy said that the Star Dress Mix magic was only temporary, but it greatly increased her magic power when she used it. Yukino wondered if she could do it too, so she concentrated and tried the Star Dress Pisces, and was surprised by the result. She also tried Star Dress Libra and said that combining them was difficult, but it seemed she could convert her magic into dress form. Lucy was shocked because it took her a whole year to achieve that. Yukino attacked using Star Dress Libra and made Athena kneel. Lucy was delighted and cheered her on. She was the next to attack. Lucy chanted to use the Regulus and Earth magic spell, Leon Maiden. She managed to release pillars of light to hit Athena. This caused a powerful explosion. Yukino was pleased, thinking they had defeated her, but Lucy said not yet. She noticed that she still hadn't managed to bring Athena down. The White Wizard said she thought they were just little girls and had underestimated them. The two were surprised. Athena added that perhaps she should have used whiteout on them earlier. She admitted her mistake was wanting to make them suffer. Suddenly, something seemed to urge her to kill them. Athena wondered what that feeling was, if it was euphoria. Lucy and Yukino trembled with fear because of Athena. She added that her alchemy was to create feelings because she didn't possess them. So she used alchemy to give fear and pain to the two. The effect was clearly strong on the two wizards while Lucy thought about what was happening. They noticed their clothes were melting and their bodies seemed to be burning up. Athena wanted them to cry and scream in the raging flames. Lucy and Yukino's suffering due to the alchemy used was visible. But Lucy thought that it wasn't flame like Natsu's, and she finally realized it wasn't real flames when she touched it. Yukino was surprised when Lucy said it was just an illusion. She urged Yukino not to give in because it wasn't hot and their clothes weren't really melting. Yukino realized she was right and it was just an illusion. Lucy said it was similar to the principle of charm magic. Its weak point was recognition. Once they knew it was an illusion, it would disappear. Because of this, Yukino was impressed with Lucy. Lucy then addressed Athena, who had said she was just a puppet made to defeat the dragon gods and had no feelings. But she said she was angry, surprised, and flustered. Lucy smiled and said that meant she had feelings, she just didn't understand them. Athena pondered what she said. Lucy said she had an idea, a proposal that would be really great for her. Yukino was puzzled because Lucy was negotiating with an enemy. Athena was puzzled by Lucy's proposal, and Lucy agreed and asked why don't they become friends, which left Athena still wondering while Yukino was shocked by this, and Sting exclaimed, "Hey," despite being weakened. Athena questioned Lucy's inquiry, so Lucy explained that she thought if they could sort out their goals, they wouldn't need to fight anymore. Lucy said their goal was to seal the 5 dragon gods, and specifically, only Viernes and Ignia were left. She thought they might be able to borrow Athena's power for that purpose. Due to talking to her directly, Lucy realized they had no reason to oppose each other, at which point Natsu interjected, saying of course they had a reason because those people had kidnapped them. Lucy explained that Athena's guild had kidnapped them because they wanted to use their magic power, and since she saw Athena trying to absorb Natsu and Sting's magic, they specifically wanted dragon magic. Athena just stared at this, and Lucy added that her goal was to absorb that magic so Athena could feel emotions, and perhaps Gold Owl thought they could bring out her power in that way. Yukino was amazed by Lucy and asked how she knew all that, to which Lucy said she was just guessing, explaining that she's a writer so she's good at creating plausible-sounding stories. Athena replied that she was correct for the most part, but as she was about to explain what Lucy got wrong, Lucy suddenly said that she thought Athena already had the feeling she wanted, but she didn't know if that would help bring out her power. Athena questioned the idea that she had feelings, while Lucy was urging Athena to stop their fight and just return their friends. Athena lowered her head and thought about this, while Lucy added, asking if it was true that she was thinking about things, and if so, that was a feeling called confusion. Athena reasoned that she was given an order by her master, and she was in the process of carrying it out, to which Lucy said that she had feelings, so she should think about it on her own and decide what she wanted to do now. Athena's eyes widened as if she realized something, and we were shown Sting, Natsu, and Happy looking very weak, while Yukino's face showed concern. Just as Athena was about to respond, we suddenly switched to the situation with Urza, Jalal, and Minerva, who were still being chased by Russo while she fired arrows at them. Jalal shouted, asking what was up with this world, to which Urza said that all in all, she supposed it was a dream world created by Russo, while Minerva was just telling them to keep running. Russo aimed an arrow at them, saying they should make sure to put more effort into escaping, or she might catch them. She sent the arrow towards the three, and while running, Urza spotted a candy cane, quickly grabbed it, and used it as a sword to deflect the arrows Russo was sending at them. While Urza was doing this, Jalal asked if there was an exit in this place, and as Minerva was saying that if there was one, they would see it right away, they suddenly saw a door with an exit sign, which surprised them, prompting Urza to ask but why, while Russo also wondered why there was such a thing and thought about whether she had created it. The three ran towards it, and even though they thought it might be a trap, they decided to enter because it was their only option. They entered, and Russo tried to stop them but couldn't, and after they went through the exit, they suddenly came out of Russo's created world and their bodies returned to normal. Minerva quickly acted when they noticed this, saying that they didn't know how deeply Russo's power worked, so they should retreat for now. Using her territory magic, she teleported them away from that place, while Russo and Eni were still in her world, and Russo just commented that they had escaped. Frowning, Russo asked Eni if she had created that exit, to which Eni replied she was getting bored playing along with her games. So Russo said in that case, she should have just killed them. Eni said none of them had the dragon magic they were looking for, so Russo irritatedly asked why they had captured them in the first place. Eni said she didn't know, and explained that they were told that if they caught enough fairy tale members, they would find dragon magic, so maybe they just caught the wrong ones. Russo was left speechless at this and said that it didn't mean they had to let those people go, to which Eni replied that she had lost interest in them, was tired of wasting time, and found it boring. Russo threw a tantrum and argued that they might have been useful even without dragon magic, and she wanted to play with them more. Because of this, Eni became serious and called her with a frightening tone, asking if she didn't know the meaning of the word bored. Fear was visible on Russo's face when she heard this, and she agreed. After that, we moved to the Gold Owl base, where we saw Lucy and Rogue lying helpless after Duke had taken their Dragon Slayer magic. Gray asked if they said they wanted dragon magic, to which Duke agreed and said he didn't expect to be so lucky as to get one of the famous twin dragons. Rogue was surprised that he knew about them, so Duke explained that he had researched the major dragon slayers of Ishgal. Serena boasted that if Duke had asked him about it, he would have told him right away. Janai then asked if Serena wasn't interested in other people, to which Serena laughingly replied that Janai was right and he had never heard of them before. Serena suddenly looked at Wendy and wondered if she was also a dragon slayer. While staring at her, he commented that there seemed to be different types of dragon slayers. Gray then asked if they wanted dragon magic. Wasn't the Diabolos guild nearby? To which Janai replied that those people ate dragons and were impure. They had planned to use the 72 Dogra cores to perfect Athena, but they could substitute pure dragon slayer magic for those. Hearing this, Gray thought that Wendy and Rogue couldn't fight in their condition, and there were 4 strong enemies in front of him, so he wondered what he should do. Suddenly, Duke raised one of his hands and said they no longer needed these vessels of dragon magic now that they didn't have it anymore, not even Gray. Gray's face showed irritation because he couldn't do anything. As Duke was preparing to attack to finish them off, someone suddenly entered the room, shouting for Duke to wait and calling him master. This made Gray and Duke turn towards the speaker, and it turned out to be Athena, accompanied by Natsu, Lucy, Sting, and Yukino. Joy was visible on the faces of Gray, Lecter, and Frosh when they saw them. Happy said that he and Carla were here too, while Carla commented that she was glad they were safe. Duke asked what Athena was doing with those people, while Natsu was seething because he saw that they had taken down Wendy and Rogue. Lucy calmed him down, saying he would only make things more complicated. Athena happily explained to her master that she no longer needed their magic, which greatly surprised Duke. Athena added that she now had feelings, and all she needed was for Duke to perfect her body. Concern was visible on Duke's face when he heard this, and he asked if it was true, to which Athena agreed. He called Athena closer to him, which she promptly obeyed. As Athena approached him, she explained that she thought she was now experiencing the feeling known as happiness, to which he just said not to speak. Unexpectedly for Athena, Duke suddenly attacked her, piercing her body with his hand while saying that she turned out to be another failed machine. Shock was visible on the faces of everyone who witnessed the event, and Natsu shouted in anger, asking why Duke had done that. Duke removed his hand, allowing Athena to collapse, and he smiled at what he had done to her. Soon after, Athena fell completely while unable to comprehend why Duke had done this, and Gray and others present stared at her in shock. Natsu immediately rushed forward in anger, delivering a flame punch, but Serena quickly stopped him. He commented that Natsu was 100 years too early to approach their master, and promptly repelled him. Natsu tumbled, and upon landing, he immediately used Fire Dragon's Roar, which Serena simply caught and ate his flames while boasting that elemental magic wouldn't work on the 8-dragon dragon slayer. Serena countered and used Sea King dragons encircling deluge, which solidly hit Natsu and his companions, sweeping them away. Janai and Kotetsu were affected by this, prompting them to comment that Serena shouldn't destroy their guild, calling him a god pest. While enduring Serena's attack, Natsu couldn't believe that he could use different elements simultaneously. Serena followed up with another attack, Purgatory Dragon's Flaming Hell, so now 2 elements were continuously hitting Natsu and his friends. Gray immediately shouted for Natsu to just eat that attack, to which Natsu replied if he was crazy because it was flames and water, with hot and cold properties. While Athena was lying convulsing on the floor, Natsu saw this, and upon looking at her, he commented that jerks who don't care about their own guildmates would taste his wrath. He immediately stopped Serena's attack using his fire, surprising Serena, while Duke commented that he had burned the water, and Carla and Happy said that was their Natsu. After Natsu escaped Serena's attack, he immediately prepared to counter, but Duke just smiled at him. Suddenly, Natsu and his companions' bodies blurred, and they completely vanished from Duke's sight, causing them to wonder how they had suddenly disappeared. The surroundings fell silent after Natsu and the others vanished, and Janai noticed that even Athena had disappeared, leaving Kotetsu in disbelief at what had happened. Duke smirked and thought that Eleftheria was behind this. On the other side, when Natsu reappeared in another place, the attack he had intended for Duke landed on Sting's face. It turns out that everyone who was in the Gold Owl base had all been transported to the same place, and when Lucy observed where they were, she noticed they were in Magia Dragon. Eleftheria immediately commented that he had teleported them there, which amazed Natsu that he could do that, while Sting shouted that he had made a mistake and should learn from the princess. Lucy asked why he had done this, so Eleftheria explained that he needed to save Athena as soon as possible. They saw that Athena was unconscious, so Yukino asked if she was still alive, to which Eleftheria agreed but said he didn't expect to meet her again like this. He pointed out that he had also transported Minerva, Urza, and Jalal here while doing that. Urza commented that she remembered Eleftheria saying he didn't know where Athena was, and that Selene had even entered the Great Labyrinth to find her. Eleftheria agreed with her and explained that he had only found her recently, and he didn't expect her to join an alchemist guild, to which Gray said that the master of that guild claimed he was Eleftheria's pupil, so Eleftheria said that he used to be his pupil but Duke had been dead for a long time, which frightened Happy. Eleftheria explained that it was no longer the Duke he knew, and although they looked alike, the person they saw there was someone else. Lucy wondered what he meant, while Yukino requested that he provide more details. Eleftheria thought about this, and suddenly did his favorite thing to do to Lucy to Yukino, going between her breasts while saying that, however, he wasn't sure if he could talk about it in front of Sabretooth. Because of this, Sting tried to pluck him from Yukino's chest while asking where he thought he was going, to which Gray silently said he could ask the same thing to Sting. Eleftheria left Yukino's chest and said that he couldn't tell the story because it was secret information about the 100 Years quest, and he could only share it with members of the guild who had accepted that quest. Gray argued that it wasn't related to the quest, and they wanted to know about him and Duke, and also about Athena, while Natsu suddenly walked out, saying he wasn't interested, causing Lucy to shout. Natsu suddenly said seriously to tell him when they're done talking, because he was preparing to punch Duke, which made Urza and the others feel that Natsu was really getting serious about this. Eleftheria agreed to their request and began to explain that more than a century ago, before the formation of the first Wizard Guild, he had a pupil named Duke. He was an extremely talented young man, but he abandoned the path of magic out of fear of being caught by witch hunts that were prevalent in those times, and left him. As time passed, the first Wizard Guild was born and became an organization that protected people from witch hunts. After that, the 5 dragon gods appeared, and their battle began. When they were struggling to think of an effective strategy, he visited his former pupil, Duke. Duke had found success as an alchemist and had just formed Gold Owl at that time. He He asked Duke to create a weapon capable of fighting the 5 dragon gods, and Duke happily agreed to his former master's request. And thus, Athena was created, and at this time, Eleftheria couldn't believe it and didn't expect Duke to give her a human form, to which Duke said it wasn't just a human form, and that Athena is indeed a human. Eleftheria's face showed surprise when he heard what Duke said, so he stated that it was a doll infinitely close to being human. Eleftheria asked if this was allocation machine technology, to which Duke shook his head and said that Athena had some machine-like parts that powered her, but that was it. He said it was a magical life form named Athena. Suddenly, Athena's eyes opened, startling Eleftheria, who pointed out this occurrence. Duke said of course they would open because she's a living being. Eleftheria asked if she could speak, and Duke replied naturally. Duke introduced Eleftheria to Athena as her master, to which Athena politely bowed while saying she was pleased to meet him, while Eleftheria looked astonished. Duke explained to Athena that she was brought to life to vanquish dragons, and they wanted her to help them, to which Athena replied that she understood. From then on, they used Athena to fight against dragons, and they commented that her power was overwhelming. As Eleftheria watched this, he thought they might be able to defeat the 6 dragon gods with Athena. While Eleftheria was narrating, Gray suddenly interrupted and shouted, "Wait a minute, Urza," and he asked if that meant Athena had Dragon Slayer power, to which Eleftheria agreed, but said the power was too strong. We returned to his story, where it showed the entire town engulfed in flames, with fear visible on Eleftheria's face as it happened, while Athena had just finished eliminating some low-level dragons and informed him of this. Eleftheria shouted at Athena that he didn't order her to burn down the town, to which Athena calmly replied that she wasn't told that destroying towns was discouraged. Eleftheria yelled at her not to burn towns, to which Athena responded that it would greatly reduce her efficiency in eliminating dragons. Eleftheria explained to them that such incidents continued, so he went to Duke to request improvements to Athena. But when he arrived at Gold Owl, Duke's subordinates tearfully told him that Duke had suffered an alchemy failure and had died recently, which visibly shocked Eleftheria when he heard it. Gray was puzzled by his story that Duke had died a long time ago, while Lucy asked who then was the Duke they saw at Gold Owl. Sting ominously said that they saw a ghost, which frightened Yukino. Minerva thought that maybe he was revived using alchemy, which surprised Urza, while Eleftheria commented that he didn't know about that. Jalal said it might be possible, and told them to look at God Serena. In any case, Eleftheria said, the Duke they saw was completely different from the Duke he knew, and he had never been like that. Gray then asked what he did after that, and Eleftheria answered that he sealed Athena, or so he thought, and he was sure he had done it, until just recently. He said he sealed her deep underground, behind a magical barrier to wait for the right time when another genius alchemist like Duke would arrive. However, in a battle against Earth Dragon God Dogramag, he stole his heart, and because of that, he lost the location of Athena in his memory. But as long as it was sealed, he didn't think it would fall into anyone's hands. Suddenly, someone stood behind them and said that she herself broke the barrier and came to the outside world. It turns out it was Athena, now conscious, and she was still able to stand despite having a large hole in her abdomen, which shocked Eleftheria and the others. Worriedly, Eleftheria asked if she was all right now, to which Athena agreed and asked if this was the feeling known as sympathy, or maybe it was just a confirmation that she was functioning, to which Lucy said they were worried about her. Athena explained here that she didn't understand feelings, and she thought that she might have caused Eleftheria a big problem. While Eleftheria was still explaining that it wasn't, Athena added that his decision to seal her at that time was correct, and there was no problem with that. She said she herself broke the seal and decided to travel to find feelings. She said she couldn't return to Eleftheria then because he was the one who sealed her, and Duke had passed away, so she had no choice but to live on her own. Athena said it must be strange to hear a doll talking about living, to which Lucy commented that there was nothing strange about it, which widened her eyes. Lucy added that this was because she was alive, which made her smile with clear happiness on her face. Eleftheria was shocked to see Athena smile, and he couldn't believe that she could feel emotions. Athena continued to explain to them that as she was doing various things, people gathered around her, and before she knew it, the white magic cult Rebellious was formed. Jalal commented that at that time, the black magic cult avatar, devoted to Zeruf, was also emerging. He noted that her immense power, which seemed like white magic, was its counterpart, so people flocked to her and became her followers. Then Athena said that it may have become a cult, but she didn't preach anything, and people voluntarily came to her and worshipped of their own will. However, she said she wasn't fulfilled by that, and she wished to have feelings, and that's when the current Duke arrived. Eleftheria was shocked when he heard this, while Lecter asked if it was a man who should be dead, so he answered that he knew that too, and that awareness wasn't mistaken because it really wasn't the real Duke. However, she said she didn't mind that, and he offered her a proposal, saying he had found a way to alchemize feelings for her. Gray responded that was the reason why she left Rebellious and went there, while Eleftheria said he thought she was sealed until just recently, and he had no idea there was a fake Duke there. Athena said he wasn't fake, nor was he the real Duke, which puzzled Sting and made him ask what that meant. So Athena explained that it was a concept, an embodiment of the concept of Duke, to which Yukino said she still didn't understand. Athena explained that Duke was another illusion created by alchemy, and while saying that the Guild Gold Owl was an alchemist, she suddenly retracted that and said that the Guild Gold Owl was the metal dragon god Viernes, and this was its will. When they all heard this, they were all left speechless in confusion. Minerva wondered about the idea of a guild being an alchemist, while Lucy was thinking about what she said about the will of Viernes, while Sting was just shouting that he was completely confused by it. Athena then said that to put it in simpler terms, Gold Owl is Viernes. Gray and Urza were shocked by this, and thought it was using mimicry, so Athena shook her head and said Viernes had no physical body. Eleftheria shouted that it couldn't be possible because he had seen Viernes before, so Athena added that more precisely, Viernes used to have a body, but that dragon god now lives as a concept. Gray asked how they could defeat that kind of enemy, while Urza was thinking that if destroying the guild would do it, to which Jalal replied that he didn't think so. Sting also asked what they should do then, and suddenly Natsu returned and asked if they weren't done talking yet, and said in a cheerful tone that they just needed to take it down and laughed. Because of that, they were all left speechless again, while Lucy shouted that it wasn't possible, to which Athena said it was possible, and there was a way to defeat Viernes. Urza asked Lucy to give them a quick rundown of what they had discussed, and Lucy began to explain that over 100 years ago, Duke created Athena at Eleftheria's request. After that, Duke passed away, and Eleftheria sealed her in a hidden place. But Athena herself broke the seal and traveled the world. Then Duke, who should have been dead, appeared to Athena, and she joined his guild, the Alchemist Guild Gold Owl. Gray added questioningly that but the guild itself is an alchemist and Viernes. Lucy struggled to understand the events, commenting that even though they had pieced it together, she still couldn't understand that part. Athena said that to put it in wizard terms, it might be like an enchantment because Viernes no longer had a body. Only the will of that dragon god possesses the guild, created Duke, and Viernes used his power. Sting commented that isn't it a bit weird because isn't her power meant to defeat dragons, and are dragons fighting each other? Urza said that the 5 dragon gods aren't friends, and Eleftheria added that they tried to outmaneuver each other. So if Viernes was using Athena in the past to try to kill the other dragon gods, it would make sense. But Urza said they had no way to defeat Viernes without a physical body, to which Natsu said they just need to use their fists, leaving Lucy speechless and saying why he couldn't understand that it was impossible. Athena then said there was a way, and when she said but, Happy asked, but what? So she said she didn't know what she should do. Yukino reasoned that the Duke they saw was fake, and didn't he treat her badly, to which Lecter and Sting said they should take him down so she could be free. Athena's eyes widened when she heard the word freedom, so Lucy explained that doesn't she have feelings now, and she needs to choose a path for herself. Athena stared for a moment, but soon smiled and agreed. She said she would continue her original goal and defeat Viernes. Her companions smiled at her words, and Urza asked how they would actually defeat that dragon god, to which she replied that they could do it using a separation enchantment and the Philosopher's Stone. First, they need to tear Viernes will out of the guild using the separation enchantment, and then they'll use the Philosopher's Stone, the great hidden treasure of alchemy, to give that dragon god a material form, and after that, they'll use their fists to crush it, which left Lucy speechless at the method of how they would win. However, they have a few problems, such as there are few wizards who can perform the separation enchantment, and to her knowledge, there was one from Ishgal, but they had passed away, which made Urza realize she was referring to Irene. Urza commented that she knows a wizard equal to the one she mentioned, and that's Wendy, to which Athena said but Duke took her magic. So Natsu shouted that if so, they need to defeat Duke first and revive Wendy, and they'll include Rogue too, to which Frosh agreed. Athena added that she couldn't think of an alchemist capable of creating a Philosopher's Stone, so Minerva quickly pointed out that aren't there more alchemists on this continent than in Ishgal or Alakatasia, and Yukino said they would try other alchemist guilds, and Natsu added that they would take down Duke, so he immediately left Magia Dragon with Urza, Jalal, Gray, Lucy, Happy, and Carla, while carrying the weakened Wendy. In the next scene, we went to the Alchemist Guild Butterfly Horn, where Sting, Minerva, and Yukino went to ask about the Philosopher's Stone, but the members there just laughed at them, saying all alchemists want to make it, but they don't know anyone who has done it, and even Duke, the best on the continent, hasn't made it yet. After that, Minerva and the others left when they heard this and just thanked them, and there were two men who stopped them and commented if the women in Ishgal were this hot. One man suddenly held Minerva's chin and asked if she wanted to play with them, while Minerva just stared at him. Soon, due to the actions of these men, the situation escalated into chaos and the destruction of their guild, to which Sting and Lecter commented that she got carried away, and she violated the pact not to fight other guilds, to which Minerva just said they weren't in Ishgal. Yukino spoke again, saying that in any case, it seems Duke is really the top alchemist here, so if even he can't make a Philosopher's Stone, she wondered if anyone really has the ability to make one, to which Sting said they just need to try other guilds for now. On the other hand, Natsu and his companions had arrived outside of Gold Owl. Natsu put Wendy down on the ground and ordered Happy and Carla to watch over her, to which they agreed, and Carla warned them to be careful because they're facing alchemists, so they're sure to use troublesome techniques. Gray agreed and said they already know most of the members, and Urza added that the sisters in particular are formidable opponents. Jalal added that at least, if they can defeat Duke and restore Wendy's magic, while Lucy added that they should also restore Rogue's while they're there, which prompted Rogue to get annoyed because they were openly showing that he wasn't as important as Wendy to them. Natsu commented that it might seem stupid to go to the same guild twice in one day, but they should charge in, and soon they opened the entrance door of the guild and Natsu immediately shouted Duke's name and said they came there for a showdown. However, they were all shocked by what they saw when the door opened, and it turns out that what they saw was the inside of their guild, and Mira even greeted them with a welcome back. Natsu and the others' eyes widened at this, and they couldn't understand what was happening. Juvia immediately hugged Gray, while Kana and Max noticed that Wendy wasn't with them and Jalal was. Lucy asked what was happening here, so Levy asked what the problem was because she could see the worry on her face, while Gajeel teased her that she looked like she had eaten poop, so Lily also asked what he meant. Urza's eyes widened at this and she asked why they were in Fairy Tale, and suddenly the door closed behind them, and Jalal immediately shouted not to be fooled, and that all of this was an illusion. After he said that, the color of their guild mates' eyes suddenly changed, and even the Juvia hugging Gray was also an illusion. It looked like that Natsu's guild mates had turned into zombies, and they were slowly approaching them, while concern was visible on their faces, while Juvia continued flirting with Gray, so Gray tried to push her away, causing him to grab Juvia's large breasts. This made him blush and comment that she wasn't an illusion, but had a real body. Natsu happily said that if that was the case, they could punch them, and he urged the stronger ones to charge at him. Lucy shouted at him not to call the strong ones, while Urza was stunned silent because Natsu called her too, even though she was on his side now. Jalal asked how they were supposed to fight them since they were their guildmates, and if he wasn't reluctant to hurt them. Natsu and Urza replied that it was okay, and they did it often. Urza transformed, and they started beating up their guildmates. Lucy also charged forward and targeted Levi, but before she could reach her, Gajeel stopped her and said how mean she was for trying to hurt a pregnant woman. Lucy felt uncomfortable at the idea, and Levi suddenly countered and shouted, hitting Lucy with a barrage of letters that liquefied, causing her to drown in them. Natsu saw this, but just as he was about to help her, Laxus suddenly attacked him with a lightning strike. Juvia began attacking Gray with her water magic, and before long, Gray vanished. Urza and Jalal were easily defeated by Gildarts using his magic, and when they were cut into small pieces, a strong whirlwind suddenly pulled them in, spinning them around, and they soon vanished as well. When Urza opened her eyes, she was in a different place, so she asked where she was, bewildered by what was happening. She also wondered where her guild companions had gone. Suddenly, someone beside her spoke, saying that their master had created those bodies using alchemy, and this world was created by her sister, Luzo. It turns out that Onii and Luzo had arrived, and Onii said this was purgatory. Urza's eyes widened at them, while they added that if they fell there, it would be the end for them, and they wouldn't be able to return until they were burned by the flames of hell. Onii said she had no interest in Urza, but this was their master's order, so Luzo added that the Signario sisters would play with her. On the other hand, Gray and Lucy were teleported together to another place, and while wondering where their companions were, a man approaching them suddenly commented that perhaps they had fallen into other purgatories. It turns out that Janai and Kotetsu had arrived there, and they said they would be their opponents. Kotetsu said Janai would handle the woman because he didn't like weak opponents, which irritated Lucy, while Gray commented that if they underestimated their rider, there would be trouble. This boosted Lucy's confidence, and she said that was right, and when she writes her autobiography someday, she'll make those two look like they have terrible personalities. In another purgatory, we see Jalal walking, and he encountered God Serena. They stared at each other, the surroundings filled with intensity, and Jalal called out to Serena, addressing him as the former top wizard of Ishgard. He said Serena had become a traitor for the Alvarez Empire, was killed by Acnologia, and now appeared to be a corpse puppet, so Jalal remarked that he had led an eventful life. Serena struck poses and even had a spotlight on him, and soon after, he asked who this Jalal was, to which Jalal replied that he was the most sinful person in Ishgard. On another side, we also see Natsu walking around in a different purgatory, wondering what was happening, saying that just a moment ago, he was hit by Laxus's lightning and ended up there. While walking, he saw Wendy, Carla, and Happy stuck in a soft-like substance formed like a slab, causing him to shout in concern for them. Suddenly, someone asked if he came here to restore that woman's magic power, and it turns out it was Duke, who added that unfortunately, he couldn't give that to Natsu. However, he said he had something else to offer. The slab where Wendy and the others were bound suddenly opened, and something slowly emerged from it as Duke explained that he would show Natsu the new power he created by alchemizing the magic he had taken. Surprise was visible on Natsu's face as he watched this, and before long, Athena emerged, whom Duke called Athena 2, Sky Shadow Dragon mode, with a completely different appearance. Duke explained that this was an Athena with Sky Dragon and Shadow Dragon powers, and unlike the first one he made, which he called a piece of trash, this one had no feelings. Natsu remembered what Duke had done to Athena, and anger was evident on his face because of it. Duke said he would add Fire Dragon power to Athena 2, and he began to think about what he could name her once he had done that. Soon after, he ordered Athena 2 to charge at Natsu to steal his dragon power, to which Athena immediately complied. With a swoosh of her hand, Natsu was suddenly hit by a powerful wind, making him realize it was Wendy's wind. After that, Athena 2 followed up and used Rogue's shadow magic, which hit Natsu solidly, sending him flying and causing him to comment on how interesting this was. While this was happening, we shift our focus to Urza, who was preparing to fight the Signario twins. She questioned their statement about not being able to leave until she was burned by the flames of hell, and said they would see who would burn there. We quickly returned to Natsu, who had ignited his fists with fire and shouted that he was getting fired up. Athena too stood in front of Natsu as he was getting fired up, and before long, he used Thunder Fire Dragon mode and quickly charged at Athena too. He punched her in the abdomen with Thunder Fire Dragon's attack, pushing Athena 2 back, and while she was still reeling, he followed up with Thunder Fire Dragon's talons, kicking her in the chin. Athena 2 was dazed, but she quickly countered using Rogue's shadow magic. She tried to hit Natsu, but he managed to dodge everything by tumbling and using his agility. While Athena 2 was raining down attacks, Natsu managed to get close and use Thunder Fire Dragon's Fang on her, causing a large cross-shaped crack on Athena 2's chest. Duke commented that Natsu also had Thunder Dragon power, but his Athena 2 had other powers as well. Suddenly, Athena 2 was enveloped by a whirlwind, and the crack on her chest gradually shrank. Soon, it was restored to its original state as if nothing had happened, making Natsu realize it was Wendy's healing magic. Natsu then said that in that case, he would just have to inflict such massive damage that she wouldn't be able to heal it, and he prepared himself before using one of his Thunder Fire Dragon's moves. While this was happening, we shift to Lucy and Gray's situation. Lucy summoned Loki, who commented that it had been a while since he last saw Gray, to which Gray replied that he should just help them. Because of this, Loki immediately emitted light using his magic, surprising Janai and Kotetsu, who wondered what that light was. Gray quickly touched the ground and used Ice Geyser, suddenly enveloping Janai and Kotetsu in a large ice shard. However, Janai easily turned it into smoke, while Kotetsu shattered it, and the flying shards began to transform into steel. Lucy and Gray were surprised by this, and Kotetsu immediately sent a barrage of metal towards them. As the metal approached, Lucy quickly summoned Ares, who used Fluffy Wool Shield to stop the metal. Kotetsu's attack just bounced off, surprising him, while Janai commented that he understood now and saw that Lucy was more troublesome than she looked. Kotetsu agreed, prompting Gray to say he had told them so, while Loki said it was because Lucy was his wife, and Ares added that she was also very kind. Janai snapped his fingers and called for Sai, who immediately appeared, shocking Gray that he was still alive. Kotetsu explained that Duke had created them using alchemy, so as long as Duke was alive, they wouldn't die. Janai ordered Sai to seal Lucy's powers, which Sai promptly obeyed by using bond alchemy, shouting for her to think of the person she considered the weakest. Lucy was confused by this, so Gray explained that Sai would transfer her body to whoever she thought of, and it was a trap, so she should think of someone strong. Lucy pondered this, and Sai said to go ahead and think of someone strong, someone so strong that she hated them. As Lucy was thinking, Gray commented to himself that if she switched with someone she hated, she might not be able to use their power because she would be so repulsed by them. Because Janai was taking too long, he ordered Sai to just turn her into a dog or monkey, to which Sai replied that it wasn't that simple, and he could only switch a person with someone they were thinking of. Janai pointed out that Sai had turned Gray into a gem before, to which Sai responded that it was because they were thinking of gems. Because of this, Gray noticed something about the mechanics of Sai's alchemy and thought of a plan. Gray suddenly shouted Mira's name to Lucy, confusing her because she loved Mira, while Sai told her not to lie to her mind. Gray explained that it would be faster if they just stopped Sai, and he immediately charged, but Sai was prepared and said he would use his bond alchemy on Gray as well. Sai asked if there wasn't someone Gray hated, and soon Gray realized that Sai would use rival bond alchemy on him, immediately transforming him into Natsu. Lucy was surprised, and Gray commented that he had become a crappy pyromaniac. Soon, he realized that if this happened, Natsu would become him, and his thoughts were correct because when we shift to Natsu's situation, he had suddenly become Gray. Athena too stared at this, and Natsu stopped because he noticed the transformation. When he noticed this, he commented that his body was freezing and he couldn't produce fire, while Duke immediately recognized it as Sai's power. We returned to Gray's situation. where he suddenly started stripping while saying this was bad, causing Lucy to shout at him not to undress there. Gray explained that while Natsu was strong, their powers were incompatible, so neither of them could use their own magic. Lucy asked what kind of magic this was, to which Sai pointed out again that it was alchemy, and shouted that Lucy would be next. Lucy carefully considered someone compatible with her who was strong and whom she hated, but quickly dismissed the thought because their compatibility wasn't good. She didn't hate the woman she thought of, but they were rivals. Because of this, Sai noticed her brief thought of a rival and immediately used rival bond alchemy on her, causing Gray to shout, asking who she had thought of. Soon after, Lucy answered, and upon transformation, she became Brandish. This left Sai speechless, commenting that Lucy had become another sexy chick, while Janai wondered if they would be okay, and Kotetsu pointed out that she wouldn't be able to use the power of someone she hated. Gray, however, became energized and suddenly grinned, thinking that their victory was now certain. After that, we moved to the town of Dunasa in eastern Gieltina, where journalists from the monthly Wizard magazine were talking to Brandish. They wanted to make her a model for their magazine. Brandish commented that it would be a headache, but since her travel funds were running low, one of the journalists pointed out that they would pay her. Soon after, they started the photo shoot for the magazine, and Brandish struck sexy poses. While they were doing this, the photographer asked if she always wore these kinds of bikini-type clothes. The journalist then suggested that if so, would it be okay for her to wear an even bolder outfit, which visibly irritated Brandish. Suddenly, she transformed into Lucy's body, surprising the photographer and the journalist. Even Brandish was puzzled by this and wondered why she had become Lucy. However, as she looked at Lucy's enlarged chest, she grinned and had an idea. She slowly began to undress and said she would wear any costume the journalist wanted, even if it was a hassle. After that, we returned to Lucy, who had just transformed into Brandish. Gray shouted at her that he knew her powers, so she should attack them. Lucy replied that she couldn't because she had holder-based powers, while Brandish had ability-based powers, and they weren't compatible. Janai commented that he didn't really understand it, but Sai's alchemy seemed successful. Kotetsu then said that if that was the case, they just needed to dispose of them. Gray was very irritated by this and tried hard to remember how Natsu used his power. Soon, he attempted to use Fire Dragon's Fist, but he immediately felt too hot. He couldn't believe it because it was Natsu's body, and it should have been able to withstand the heat and even eat fire. Janai and Kotetsu quickly attacked, using their respective alchemy to perform combined alchemy, blind iron sickles. Smoke surrounded Lucy and Gray, and while they were in the middle of it, sickles suddenly emerged, trying to hit them. Lucy commented that this was bad and decided to use her celestial keys, but when she reached for them, she noticed that she didn't have her keys, so she was forced to just dodge the attacks. While Gray was saying that the smoke was blocking their vision and they were being attacked by steel sickles, he suddenly realized something. When a sickle was about to hit him, he tried to block it, and there he confirmed that Natsu's body wasn't affected by steel because it just melted. He realized that earlier, he had felt hot because he thought Natsu's flames were too hot. He shouted that he should now be able to use Natsu's fire, and Lucy should be able to use Brandish's magic. Lucy thought about this and remembered that Brandish's magic could enlarge or shrink things. She thought carefully about how Brandish used her magic, and soon she tried to do it herself. When she used Command T, expansion, her body suddenly grew larger, but she was in an awkward position. Her eyes widened in embarrassment, while Janai and Kotetsu were surprised by her growth. Gray was pleased that he had cleared out the smoke because now he could use Natsu's body. Gray prepared to attack using Fire Make, Flame Hammer, and quickly sent it towards their three opponents, engulfing them in flames. Gray immediately shouted at Lucy to follow up, to which Lucy said she couldn't. Gray told her to just use her size since she was now a giant, and to just attack them. Lucy realized this and stood up. Fear was visible on their opponents' faces as they watched her prepare to punch. Soon, Lucy's gigantic punch landed on them, destroying the ground they were standing on. While this was happening, we went to Natsu, who had transformed into Gray. He was trying to use Fire Dragon's breath with Gray's ice magic, and he tried to name it Ice Dragon, but he wondered who that was, concluding that there was no such thing. Because of this, he just ended up spewing ice shards. Athena too called Duke, apparently to ask for a signal, to which Duke replied that she should just do it. While this was happening, Natsu realized that he just needed to fight like Gray. So as Athena too charged at him, he prepared to attack, and soon he managed to punch Athena too using an ice punch. As Athena too was being pushed back, Natsu suddenly returned to his normal body, which made him happy. In Gray and Lucy's situation, while their 3 opponents were already down, they also returned to normal. However, when Gray looked at Lucy, he blushed intensely, as Lucy was now wearing something sexy. When Lucy was shown to us, she was wearing what looked like a sexy maid outfit with cat ears, which confused Lucy as to why she was dressed like that. Meanwhile, in Brandish's situation, she was disappointed because she had returned to normal, while the photographer and journalist were delighted with the photos they had taken. In the next scene, we move to the alchemist guild named Lead Eagle. Here, Yukino and her companions were asking about the Philosopher's Stone. The guild members only told them that it was just an old urban legend, and that no one talked about it anymore, claiming that such a thing didn't exist. Yukino thanked them and left. It turned out they had visited 3 guilds, but still couldn't find anyone capable of creating a Philosopher's Stone. Because of this, Lecter commented that it was no wonder it was called the Great Hidden Treasure, while Yukino was discouraged, wondering if they would ever find it at this rate. Minerva was deep in thought, which made Sting ask what was on her mind. Minerva replied that the reason they couldn't gather information might be because the alchemists didn't want to share some secrets of alchemy with them since they were wizards. Lecter was troubled by this, and Sting thought it was a possibility. He explained that if an alchemist suddenly came to a wizard guild and asked about the strongest magic in existence, wouldn't no one pay attention to them? Yukino shouted that if she were asked, she would tell them, while Lecter just scratched his head, wondering what the strongest magic actually was. Minerva suddenly asked if they should try it, which made Sting ask what she was planning. She said it was a method of obtaining information from them by force, which shocked Yukino, while Sting agreed. Suddenly, someone commented from the roof of the Lead Eagle Guild that they were quite dangerous, catching their attention. Sting asked who he was. He introduced himself as Zalem, the master of Lead Eagle, and said he had heard what they said. Lecter commented that he looked like a mountain sage, while Yukino thought he might know about the Philosopher's Stone. However, this hope was quickly dashed when Zalem said that, for their information, he couldn't alchemize a Philosopher's Stone. Sting commented that he only seemed impressive. Nevertheless, Zalem said he had advice for them, which surprised Sting. He told them to look for the genius alchemist named Iruha. While this was happening, we returned to the wizard guild Magia Dragon, where Athena was asking Eleftheria if he could still perform teleportation magic. Eleftheria said he had used quite a bit that day, but he could still use it once more. Athena asked if he could transport her to Gold Owl, to which Eleftheria told her not to be reckless as she couldn't do anything now. Athena argued that even so, she needed to go there to destroy that fake duke. This made Eleftheria fall silent, and suddenly someone entered the room. It was Rogue, still weak, who said that if that was the case, Athena should take him along, as lying around all the time didn't agree with him, and Frosh felt the same way. Eleftheria asked what he could do there since he couldn't fight. Athena replied that she would defeat Duke and seal Viernes, while Rogue would take back his magic and Frosh would come with them. After that, we went to Gold Owl, where Gray and Lucy had defeated Janai, Sai, and Kotetsu, who were now unconscious. While Gray was thinking that they had defeated their opponents there for now, but wondering where they were, Lucy was still very embarrassed about her outfit. When Gray looked at her, she shyly told him not to stare, which flustered Gray. He quickly took off his shorts to give to Lucy, but she shouted that she didn't want them. Lucy trembled as she wondered what Brandish had done when they switched bodies. Gray pointed out that she could change into one of her star dresses, which she promptly did. She then urged Gray to find the exit to that place. Gray didn't respond, so she asked what the problem was. Gray said he doubted that this was real, but wondered if they couldn't leave until they defeated the alchemist who created the place. While he was thinking about this, we were shown the Signario sisters facing Urza, and Jalal facing God Serena. After that, we quickly returned to Natsu and Athena 2's battle, where Natsu was attacking and shouting that his powers had returned. Athena 2 tried to block his fire dragon's punch, but Natsu managed to break through her defense and sent her flying. Duke suddenly raised something that looked like a gold bar, commenting that Natsu was stronger than he thought, and he really wanted that power for Athena 2. Suddenly, the gold bar Duke was holding turned into a sword, which he pointed at Wendy's neck while telling them to stop. This worried Natsu and made him pause. Duke said he doubted Athena could defeat Natsu as she was now. Natsu tried to move to stop Duke, but Duke quickly stopped him and told him not to move. He brought his sword closer to Wendy while saying that the vessel had served its purpose, and if Natsu moved, he would kill her. Frustration was visible on Natsu's face as he couldn't do anything. Duke signaled Athena 2 to attack, so she immediately charged and kneed Natsu in the chin. Because Natsu moved from that attack, Duke brought his sword even closer to Wendy while telling Natsu not to move. Natsu gradually became filled with anger as Athena 2 continued to attack him. He received a barrage of powerful punches, and when he was knocked to the ground, Duke ordered Athena 2 to absorb his dragon power. Suddenly, a mouth opened on Athena 2's hand, which made Natsu's eyes widen. But before Athena 2 could do it, Athena arrived on the scene and knocked away Athena 2's hand. Both Natsu and Duke were shocked by Athena's arrival. Athena managed to deflect Athena 2's hand before she could absorb Natsu's power. Duke was irritated by this and shouted at them not to move while pointing his sword at Wendy's neck again. However, Athena didn't comply and suddenly emitted a blinding light from her eyes that enveloped the entire area, forcing Athena 2 and Duke to shield their eyes. Athena signaled Natsu to move now, so he quickly ran towards Duke and Wendy. Soon, Natsu managed to grab Duke's sword and immediately melted it using his heat. Duke was surprised by this, and Natsu quickly delivered a punch to his face before he could react. Athena said she would handle Athena 2 and told Natsu to focus on Duke. Natsu kicked Duke while shouting that Athena should leave him to him. Duke was sent flying but quickly managed to stop himself from going too far and commented that Natsu shouldn't get too cocky. While this was happening, we moved to Gold Owl, where Rogue and Frosh had managed to enter. They were surprised when they opened the door because none of their friends were there, and Rogue commented that even Athena had suddenly disappeared. Frosh decided to walk into the room, and while walking, he bumped into something. He screamed in fear and ran into Rogue's arms, so Rogue asked what the problem was. When Rogue looked at what Frosh had seen, it turned out to be a puppet, making him wonder why was it there. We then suddenly moved to Jalal and God Serena's situation, where their fight was intense. Serena managed to kick Jalal in the face, sending him flying. Serena quickly followed up with an attack, saying he would destroy Jalal using his 8 dragon attacks, and suddenly infused the ground with magic. The ground they were standing on suddenly rose, and he consecutively used Cavern Dragon's Cave-In, Sea King Dragon's Encircling Deluge, and Purgatory Dragon's Flaming Hell, all of which hit Jalal. But Jalal seemed okay, and he immediately charged back, his entire body beginning to glow, which surprised Serena. Jalal used his move called Meteor, which hit Serena's body, but it seemed to have no effect as he smiled. He suddenly grabbed Jalal, lifted his body, and slammed him hard into the ground, burying him deep. Jalal commented in his mind about Serena's extraordinary power as he was buried in the ground. While thinking, his chest suddenly started glowing, and soon more lights appeared on different parts of his body, causing him to shout, asking what they were. Serena replied that they were the 8 dragon marks, and that 8 dragons were tearing at his body with their claws. He shouted for Jalal to accept it and sent the 8 dragons glorious death, a massive energy blast that enveloped Jalal. Jalal's pain was visible here while Serena was delighted with what he had done. However, that quickly faded when something suddenly shone behind him, and beams of light suddenly emerged from the sky, causing him to question what those were. Jalal suddenly jumped out of the hole he had been buried in, and immediately prepared to attack while explaining that Serena would now be judged by the 7 stars. Jalal's attack, Grand Chariot, fell on Serena, but as it hit his body, he just laughed and commented that Jalal's attack wasn't bad, to which Jalal replied that he was still acting tough. Serena raised his 2 hands, and several orbs gradually rose. Soon, he managed to negate Jalal's attack, saying that the jaws of the 8 dragons would eat all of his magic, and he used the 8 dragons' rampaging fangs. Jalal was shocked as he watched Serena's magic consume his Grand Chariot, and soon it completely vanished. Serena pointed out that they had eaten his 7 stars, but he had 8 dragons, so the last one, the Dark Dragon, would bite Jalal, and it attacked him, hitting him solidly. Jalal cried out in pain again, and after that, the Dark Dragon attack flew behind Serena, and he declared that it was time for the grand finale, and added that the Dark Dragon would expose Jalal's sins. In the next scene, we move to Jalal's past, on a rainy day, where his father had just been buried. He was with his mother, and they were mourning her husband's death. His mother told him to pray to his father, and called him Seagrain. He then stood quiet, but not long after, he replied that he would protect his mom from now on. He said with tears in his eyes that he would study magic and join the Magic Council, which made his mom smile and say that if so, he needed to go to a magic school outside their village, to which Seagrain shouted that he would do it. So his mother asked how he would pay for it, prompting him to say he would work and save money. When he said this, his mother suddenly dropped the umbrella she was holding, hugged him, and tearfully said that as long as he was doing well, that was all she needed. While hugging her back, Seagrain then said he wanted to become a man who could protect his mother. After that, in the next scene, we were shown a town being consumed by fire. It turns out this was the time when Seagrain's town was attacked by members of the cult of Zeruf, who captured the children in the town while killing the adults. In the midst of this chaos, Seagrain continued to search for his mother, who called out to him and motioned him to come closer, so he happily ran towards her. Unfortunately, a member of the cult of Zeruf suddenly appeared behind his mother and slashed her back. His eyes widened as he watched his mother fall, and he started crying while running towards her. However, he was quickly pinned down and captured by the cultists, and was taken to the island where the Tower of Heaven was built. During these times, a kid named Wally asked him his name and introduced himself. When he was about to say his name, he suddenly thought that it wasn't him, because Seagrain should be in a magic school by now to become stronger to protect his mother. He thought that Seagrain would excel there and be admitted to a school within a city, graduate top of his class and aim for the council, have countless achievements, and become a member of the council. This is when he decided that Seagrain wasn't the one in his situation, but a different person, so he answered Wally's question by saying his name was Jalal, while thinking this was another him. After that, we return to the present where he was feeling extraordinary pain while being subjected to Serena's Dark Dragon magic. Serena explained that the Dark Dragon was using Jalal's darkness and sin to slowly eat away at his heart. A black aura engulfed Jalal as Serena's mental attack continued, and Serena said that Jalal had said he was a true sinner, and the Dark Dragon would destroy his body in response to his sins, so he should continue to be consumed by his sins. Jalal continued to remember all the sins he had committed, from how he was brainwashed by Altair and did evil things just to complete the Tower of Heaven and try to revive Zeruf. While this was happening, Jalal thought that sins don't disappear, but his darkness was illuminated by a scarlet light, and he decided that he would not stray again, and decided to move forward and become a fairy tale wizard. Jalal fought against the pain he was receiving from Serena's attack, and soon, to his opponent's surprise, he managed to stand up despite it. so Serena couldn't believe that the power of the Dark Dragon was being purified. Serena tried to follow up with an attack to stop Jalal, but Jalal quickly formed to use Grand Chariot again, so Serena arrogantly commented that they already knew it didn't work on him. While preparing to attack, Jalal remembered Urza asking him if he wanted to join Fairy Tail, and he commented in his mind that Urza had said he could be part of that family, and he wanted to repay that sentiment. Suddenly, Jalal raised 2 more fingers, which surprised Serena. Jalal began casting here, as if this was an upgraded version of Grand Chariot, and he uttered the words 9 stars pierce the heavens. Suddenly, 9 light beams emerged from the sky, and before long, they fell upon Serena. Jalal named this attack Orion, and light enveloped Serena's surroundings as the attack consumed him. Serena's body gradually disintegrated, and it was revealed to us that he appeared to be a machine as his skin melted from Jalal's attack. Out of desperation, he tried to counter, but in an instant, his eyes suddenly widened as Jalal swiftly charged at him, destroying a large part of his body. Jalal commented that this Serena was already dead. He also commanded him to quietly return to the Netherworld, and he himself would now bring him to a world without sin. In the next scene, we shift to the confrontation between Urza and the Signario sisters, with the surroundings enveloped in intensity. Luzu asked Onii with a smile if she could do something now, to which Onii gave her permission. Immediately, Luzu raised her 2 hands, and suddenly, strange faces emerged from the ground, looking as if they came from a children's playzone. These faces quickly rushed towards Urza. Urza tried to slice through them while dodging, and we can see here how agile she is. As she dodged again, Luzu suddenly pointed at her with a finger, like a gun, telling her to accept this attack, which surprised Urza. A bunny-like plush toy with a spring for a body emerged and punched Urza. After that, Luzu snapped her fingers, and giant cookies with spikes appeared in the air. She dropped these on Urza, but Urza quickly re-equipped into her adamantine armor, easily blocking the attack. Luzu was surprised by this, and Onii noticed that it was armor magic. Luzu's surprise quickly faded as she said that nevertheless, they were moving in her world. So with another snap of her fingers, Urza's adamantine armor suddenly turned into a bikini, and we can see the embarrassment on her face when she noticed it. Because of this, Urza couldn't stop the falling death cookie anymore, so she was forced to jump and dodge. But as she ran towards Luzu, a large panda toy with boxing gloves suddenly appeared in front of her and punched her hard, hitting her entire body. Luzu said in a singing manner that this was her world and Urza couldn't defeat her here, while Onii just smiled at this. Despite this, Urza didn't lose her courage. She managed to stop herself from being thrown back and said with fierce eyes that if that's the case, she just needs to destroy this world. Luzu was shocked by this, and Urza immediately re-equipped again and used the Wheel of Heaven, scattered petals. She attacked the entire surroundings with countless swords, which worried Luzu and Onii. Onii pointed out that Urza was destroying Luzu's world. Luzu became angry at this and shouted that it wasn't possible, that Urza couldn't keep up with her world alchemy. She summoned more creepy toy monsters to surround Urza, but due to Urza's current strength, she easily sliced and destroyed them. This made Luzu even more worried and panicked, saying that Urza's powers of destruction were stronger. Onii tried to calm her down, but Luzu snapped and shouted no, that she couldn't lose to someone like Urza. She used her crazy world alchemy here and summoned even more terrifying monsters while shouting that she would show her true power here. However, because Urza had also become serious, she easily defeated the 3 terrifying monsters Luzu summoned with remarkable speed. Urza gradually managed to get closer to her, and as Urza prepared to deliver the final strike to Luzu, we can see the shock and fear on Luzu's face. Even Onii lost her nonchalant attitude when she saw that her sister was about to be defeated. Soon after, Urza slashed Luzu's body with her dual blades, and Onii's eyes widened at what she saw. The weakened Luzu collapsed, causing Onii to snap as well. veins popping out on her face due to anger. In an instant, their surroundings suddenly changed again, and they seemed to have been transported to a frightening place that looked like hell, and they appeared to be standing in the middle of an elevated platform made up of bodies of monsters. Urza's jaw dropped at their situation here, and she observed their surroundings, while Onii slowly started to transform while saying that there would be no more cheap tricks and that she would fight Urza herself now. Urza suddenly felt chills, and as Onii transformed, she immediately shouted as she noticed something. It turns out that Onii used requip magic here and transformed into her armor of destruction, which greatly surprised Urza to learn that Onii had magic similar to hers and that she was also a wizard. Onii explained that she used alchemy here, and she had only alchemized that armor. She charged forward while telling Urza to remember that alchemy is stronger than magic. Their swords clashed, and Urza was pushed back by the force of her charge. They began exchanging slashes with their blades. Unfortunately, Onii managed to land a solid kick on Urza's body, sending her flying, but Urza quickly requipped again and used her black wing armor, charging towards Onii once more. Their swords clashed again, and they swiftly exchanged and matched slashes. When their swords met, Urza commented that Onii was quite skilled with a sword, to which Onii replied that she was also surprised that a devotee of magic would be so proficient with a sword. Suddenly, Onii deflected Urza's sword and rammed her body with her shoulder, causing Urza to step back and end up at the edge of the platform they were standing on. Urza didn't realize she was there, and Onii quickly followed up with an attack, causing her to fall off. She spun as she fell, but managed to stop her descent by stabbing her sword into the platform's wall. Unfortunately, Onii suddenly jumped from above and attacked her again, forcing Urza to dodge and remove her sword from the wall. We can see Urza's concern about her situation as Onii continued to charge at her. Soon, Onii managed to make her fall faster to the ground with a slash, causing her to crash onto the ground. Onii summoned countless swords and sent them all towards Urza as a follow-up, but Urza managed to stand up quickly and dodge them. As Urza was dodging, Onii suddenly swooshed her hand, and a mouth appeared on the wall Urza was running along, releasing an energy blast. Soon, that mouth's attack exploded, but it appears Urza managed to dodge it by jumping. However, Onii continued to pursue her. While still in the air, Onii delivered an extraordinary slash that hit Urza's body. Urza paused here, and we can see the damage she sustained from Onii's attack. Soon after, she finally fell, and her armor disappeared. As Onii was commenting that no one could defeat a Signario, her armor suddenly cracked at the chest, and soon after, her entire armor was destroyed. She suddenly felt the pain and cuts she had sustained, causing Urza to smile and comment that it seems they both got each other. Onii couldn't believe that in that single instant, Urza had managed to attack her. As Urza tried to stand up, she asked Onii what her goal was, to which Onii just glared at her angrily. She pointed out what Gold Owl, the guild controlled by the metal dragon god, was planning, so Onii answered that they would alchemize history. Urza asked what that meant, so Onii explained that they would kill all dragons and create a world with completely unprecedented peace, where people no longer need to fear dragons. To do this, they needed to finish off Athena, because once she obtained the power to kill dragons, they would have her kill them all. Urza then asked if this meant all dragons except Viernes, the metal dragon god, to which Onii pointed out that it had no physical body and was just a concept. They had seen the tragedy that befell Ishgal, the days of terror under Acnologia. Urza said that they had defeated him, but Onii, while raising her sword, said that it wasn't about winning or losing, and the very existence of those days was evil, and the existence of dragons leads to misfortune. Urza requipped again and commented that Onii's speech was pretty good, but she wouldn't accept that Onii had hurt her friends. She took a stance and added that no matter how lofty Onii's ideals were, she would never forgive anyone who hurt her friends, even in the name of world peace, so she would cut Onii down. The two quickly charged at each other, and Onii asked if Urza would choose her friends over peace, to which Urza replied that she will without hesitation. In their final exchange, Urza managed to land a solid hit on Eni's body while shouting that her friends are what give her peace. Eni screamed in pain from the hit she took, and Luzu saw her sister fall at the hands of Urza. As Eni collapsed to the ground, the world alchemy of the Signario sisters gradually shattered. Urza looked around her surroundings and saw a ray of light. Soon after, she suddenly saw Jalal, causing them to call out each other's names. It turns out that Lucy and Gray were also there, and they wondered if they had managed to return to the real world. Rogue was very confused about what had happened, and Frosh pointed out that they had just suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Gray questioned why Rogue was there, while Lucy also asked what was going on. Suddenly, someone commented from beside them, catching everyone's attention. He said that the world alchemy of the Signario sisters had dissolved, but it was too late now, he claimed. It turns out it was Duke, and he said he had obtained what he wanted while holding Natsu on the head, who was severely beaten up, causing Lucy to cry out in concern. Duke held the bloodied Natsu by the head, causing concern among his companions. They couldn't believe what had happened to their friend. Meanwhile, Athena lay unconscious on the ground, and Rogue called out to her. Duke declared that he had nearly obtained all the power he desired. This enraged Gray, who prepared to attack. However, Athena too suddenly jumped to stop him. She kicked him in the head, sending Gray flying. Jalal was concerned for him. Lucy and the others were shocked to notice the Black Athena, and Urza couldn't believe her use of flame power, while Duke introduced her as Athena 2. Athena 2 then levitated in the air and unleashed what seemed to be a hurricane blast. Urza and the others were swept away by the powerful wind, surprised to see her using Windy's sky magic. Below, a shadow approached Rogue. He was puzzled when he noticed his own power. The shadow attacked him, and due to these assaults, Rogue, Lucy, and Jalal struggled. Urza then faced Athena 2 and noticed her immense strength. She was certain that Athena 2 was the one who defeated Natsu. Duke threw Natsu, whom Urza tried to catch. However, Athena 2 approached her unexpectedly. She kneed Urza on the chin, causing her to fall along with Natsu, whom she was holding. It was clear that they were all having difficulty fighting Athena 2. As the wizards lay on the ground, Duke explained that the true Athena was born there. She was the embodiment of destruction and the ultimate weapon capable of ending the dragons. And that power, he said, was now in his hands. This infuriated Urza. Duke ordered Athena 2 to use her power to kill everyone present. She nodded in agreement. Meanwhile, in the middle of the forest, the Sabertooth Guild members could be seen walking. Sting said that Zalem had told them what they were looking for was in the middle of that forest. Suddenly, Yukino noticed something in the distance. It was a house surrounded by water. Minerva said it looked like what Zalem had mentioned. Lecter mentioned that Iruha, who could alchemize the Philosopher's Stone, was there. Suddenly, Sting smelled something and warned Minerva that there was something behind her. Plant roots rose and surrounded Minerva. Yukino was shocked to see the plants moving. Minerva was completely enveloped by what seemed to be vines. Sting, concerned for Minerva, whom he called Princess, called out to her. Minerva was furious at the attempt to humiliate her, and so she used her magic to escape from the bindings. However, Sting, Yukino, and Lecter were then surrounded by plants from various sides. Sting used his White Dragon Slayer magic spell, Holy Ray, to attack the plants, and Yukino helped by opening the gate of the twin Ichthyoid Palace, Pisces. They bit the plants, and when these vines were torn, they transformed into their human form. In her extreme anger, Minerva threatened to destroy the entire forest. Sting was surprised by this. As a result, the plants stopped attacking and retreated. Yukino wondered why Minerva's threat worked. Suddenly, someone spoke, saying he had created those guard plants using alchemy. Minerva was startled by this. They saw an old man above who said the plants were protecting him against intruders. They recognized him as Zalem, but Lecter said it wasn't him. He told them to look closely. The man's hair and mustache were a mirror image of Zalam's, which surprised them. He introduced himself as Iruha and said that Zalam was his son. Sting had thought they were twins. Minerva said that didn't matter anymore. She confirmed if he was Iruha, and he said yes. Minerva went straight to the point and said they came there because they wanted to ask him to create a philosopher's stone. Iruha asked what they would use it for. They answered that they would use the stone to give physical form to a dragon. Iruha became interested in this, and so Sting thought he had agreed, but he was still considering it. He explained that the philosopher's stone was the greatest secret technique of alchemy, and no alchemist in the world could create it. Yukino couldn't believe it. Lecter replied that Zalam had mentioned he might be able to do it, but Iruha responded that he had tried, but it was beyond his abilities. Suddenly, Zalam arrived and asked what if they did it together. Iruha was surprised by his arrival, and the two ran to embrace each other. Sting couldn't believe they were indeed father and son, while Yukino was delighted because they looked alike. Zalam said that if they combined their powers, they might be able to create the Philosopher's Stone. Iruha agreed and said they would try. So, they merged their alchemy powers as father and son and joined their fingers. Surprisingly, they transformed into a young girl, who welcomed the wizards to what she called the Irizala workshop. They were shocked that they suddenly became a girl, but Minerva said that it hardly matters, as long as they could create the Philosopher's Stone. But Sting still couldn't accept it. He wondered how two men combined could become a girl. Lecter suggested that she might be their granddaughter.
Nani?
She winked and said she was the combined form of Iruha and Zalam. Meanwhile, Minerva reiterated that the form didn't matter and asked again if they could really create the Philosopher's Stone. She replied that she couldn't promise anything since it was the greatest secret technique of alchemy. But Sting insisted that they really needed to make it. Irizala then asked why. Minerva explained that there was a dragon living in a guild as a concept. They needed the stone to give the dragon a physical body. Irizala thought for a moment before saying that if they didn't separate the concept from the guild first, they wouldn't be able to give it a physical form, even with the Philosopher's Stone. Sting was surprised that she knew about that, and Lecter mentioned that Athena had talked about it too. Irizala asked if they had a way to separate them. Yukino answered that they could do it using Windy's separation enchantment, which was shown to still be tied to the wall. However, Minerva said that her power had been stolen, so they needed to defeat Duke to get it back. Sting said they were counting on Natsu to do that. Switching back to the Gold Owl Guild, Natsu could be seen lying face down on the floor. He was trying hard to stand up. Lucy and the others noticed him, and they were all gradually using their remaining strength to fight. Natsu was puzzled when he saw them there and asked what they were doing there. Meanwhile, their enemies, Athena 2 and Duke, were right in front of them. Natsu told his companions not to interfere because they were his prey. Now, he said he was getting fired up. Duke called him a poor loser and said he was no match for Athena 2, but Natsu replied that he was just getting started. Duke raised his hand and said that Natsu shouldn't bother anymore because they had already taken his Dragon Slayer magic. Gray was shocked to hear this. Duke added that Natsu could no longer use his fire magic. However, Natsu, now standing, just laughed, saying they had only taken his fire magic and that was their mistake. Suddenly, electricity appeared on his arm. Everyone was surprised by this. Natsu's entire body was enveloped in electricity, and he said he had power that he obtained from Laxus on Fairy Tail's sacred ground. A lightning bolt symbol appeared on his face, and he admitted that he had never used it on its own before, but he thought he could make it work now. So, Natsu activated his lightning dragon mode. Because of this, Duke ordered Athena 2 to face him, which she agreed to and suddenly prepared to attack. However, the original Athena suddenly appeared and intervened. Athena 2 was surprised by this, while Athena said she wouldn't allow her to interfere with them. Natsu, completely covered in lightning, prepared and used Lightning Dragon's sword edge, which directly attacked Duke's body. Duke was electrocuted and screamed in pain. Natsu mentioned that he had heard Duke had been dead for a long time. The two Athenas just watched the battle between the two. Natsu realized that he wasn't facing the real Duke, so he asked who he was. He replied that he was the voice of Viernes. Natsu gathered lightning in his fist and said that he should speak to him directly and he would listen. While nervous, Duke asked where he got such power. Natsu didn't answer and just used Lightning Dragon's Iron Punch. He delivered a solid punch to Duke's face. So, in addition to the powerful punch, Duke was also electrocuted. Athena too was concerned for Duke. Meanwhile, Rogue and Wendy felt their powers returning. As he was losing consciousness, Duke commented that it was impossible for him to be defeated here, while Natsu smiled after landing his extraordinary punch. The rest of Natsu's companions also smiled, while shock was visible on the faces of Rogue and Frosh. Wendy's power fully returned to her, and so did Rogue's powers. Athena too became worried about this, so she immediately shouted that this power belonged to her, and she wouldn't let them take it. As she ran towards them, Athena quickly blocked her path and punched her hard in the face to knock her down. Athena stared at Athena too as she flew back from the force of her punch and commented that she was just a puppet like her. Happy was glad that he was safe, although he was still dizzy from what Duke had done to him, while Carla asked Wendy if she was okay, to which she agreed. Gray asked what they were going to do now, so Lucy explained that they would extract the concept of Viernes from the guild using the separation enchantment, to which Jalal said that they would need a philosopher's stone after that. As he was asking, someone suddenly entered the room and shouted sorry for the wait, and it turned out to be Sting and his team, carrying a philosopher's stone they had made thanks to the help of Zalem and Iruha. Rogue and his team were overjoyed at their arrival, and Urza was also happy that they had actually managed to do it. On the side, the weakened Duke commented that it was nonsense because it didn't exist, and all alchemists knew that. So Natsu took the Philosopher's Stone from Sting and started boasting that they had obtained it now while tapping it against his hand. Sting was startled by this and told him to be careful with it, while Yukino also said to handle it with care. Urza then told Wendy to start the process, to which Wendy immediately agreed. They went out in front of the Gold Owl Guild, and they all stood there. Wendy shouted that she would separate the concept of Viernes from that guild, and Minerva commented that once that was done, they would immediately use the Philosopher's Stone. Yukino added that they would give Viernes a physical form. Lucy said that their problem would come after all of that, and Gray added that it was because they would have to fight one of the 5 dragon gods. So Urza proudly said that it wouldn't be a problem because they had dragon slayers as allies. Soon after, Wendy began casting the separation enchantment, and she asked Irene to lend her power. She cast it, and an extraordinary aura enveloped the guild, and something like a soul started to come out, causing the eyes of Wendy's companions to widen as they watched. Happy, Lecter, and Frosh commented that it looked like a ghost coming out. As the strange aura was coming out of the guild, Urza quickly signaled Minerva and the others to use the Philosopher's Stone, while Duke, tied to a tree, shouted for them to stop and that there was no such thing as a Philosopher's Stone. Athena said that he was wrong, and that she knew an alchemist who could create a Philosopher's Stone, which surprised Duke. She explained that when she held it, she knew it was her final part. While this was happening, we suddenly shifted to the heart of the forest where Iruha and Zalem were, and they separated from their combined form of Irizala. After that, as Athena was saying that the one who made the Philosopher's Stone she was holding was the real Duke, we suddenly zoomed in on Zalem, as if pointing out that he was the real Duke and had just been using a different name. The fake Duke was shocked when he heard this, and the aura coming out of Gold Owl was getting stronger and stronger. So Rogue shouted that Viernes' physical form was about to emerge, and Sting added that they should prepare themselves for it. Athena then pointed out that the Philosopher's Stone wouldn't just give physical form to that concept, which surprised Lucy and the others. She explained that her body would be used as a vessel to give Viernes a corporeal form, which worried Lucy. That was the power of that stone, Athena said. Lucy said to wait a moment and asked what would happen to her afterwards, causing Athena to lower her head and smile briefly, then look at it and say that it wasn't a problem because this was her fate as a weapon. Lucy's eyes widened when she heard this, and she shouted that of course it was a problem because Athena couldn't just sacrifice herself like that. But Urza stopped her from speaking further. "Weren't they friends with Athena?" she cried out, to which Athena simply said that those words were enough, and she thanked her for them. With tears in her eyes, Lucy tried to stop her from doing what she was about to do, but Athena continued anyway and raised the Philosopher's Stone, saying they should defeat Viernes. When she did this, the strange aura enveloping the entire gold owl began to move towards her. Soon after, Athena transformed into the form of the metal dragon god Viernes, and her friends' faces showed their struggle to contain their emotions as they stared at this dragon, while Lucy could no longer hold back and cried in sadness. After suppressing their emotions about Athena transforming into the dragon they needed to defeat, Natsu charged forward and urged them to begin the battle. However, Lucy tried to stop him by saying to wait, that it was Athena he was rushing towards. Natsu asked if they should just run away from this fight, which made Lucy pause. Natsu shouted in frustration that he needed to take down that dragon for Athena's sake too. Viernes suddenly unleashed a breath attack, causing Urza and the others to quickly dodge. They saw that when Viernes' attack hit a tree and nearby rocks, they suddenly turned to gold, which shocked Jalal. As they looked at what the gold had done through that attack, Wendy couldn't believe it had the power to turn things into gold using its breath. After that, Viernes raised its head and wings, and light suddenly started to appear above it. Sting wondered what it was going to do next, and as Rogue looked at the sky, his eyes widened at what he saw. It turned out Viernes was making it rain countless gold coins. The gold coins fell to the ground with great force and speed, and their impact was destroying the ground, forcing Natsu's friends to dodge repeatedly. Viernes started to move, and with each step, the ground it stepped on also turned to gold. Natsu was irritated when he saw this, so he jumped towards Viernes' face and shouted that it was making everything shiny while preparing to punch with his fire dragon punch. As he attacked Viernes, he shouted asking if it liked the glow of his flames, but when his fist hit Viernes' scales, he just trembled due to their hardness, and he ended up yelling in pain from his hand afterwards. Lucy became worried about him, and Minerva commented that it indeed looked very hard, while Yukino couldn't believe that Natsu couldn't even damage it. Urza prepared herself, and while re-equipping, she said they should see how her sword would fare against it. She charged towards Viernes, and as she rushed forward, Wendy quickly cast a Dragon Slayer enchantment on her, but despite their combo, when she slashed her sword against the metal dragon scales, it just broke. Her eyes widened in disbelief. Sting shouted that they just needed to keep attacking it, and Rogue agreed. They started to prepare their attack. They held each other's hands and used their unison raid, White Shadow Dragon's silk thread, producing numerous black and white threads that ricocheted around Viernes and hit it. However, after their unison raid, it appeared to have no effect on Viernes, which Lecter and Frosh couldn't believe. Next to attack were Jalal and Gray, using Heavenly Body Magic Altiris and Ice, make Freezing Lance respectively, both landing on Viernes' body simultaneously. Natsu charged in again and followed up with his Fire Dragon's Wing attack. As they continued to attack the dragon, Natsu shouted at Lucy and asked her to fight alongside them. Lucy mustered her courage and soon agreed, quickly transforming while saying that if this was what Athena wanted, they couldn't afford to lose. Viernes unleashed another breath attack in the area, destroying the surroundings with it. A large part of their surroundings exploded, causing Jalal and the others to comment on how terrible the destructive power of this dragon was. Happy added that their attacks weren't working either, so he asked how they were going to defeat it. Lucy pointed out that Natsu's magic should be suitable for this situation, which made Happy ask why. She explained that gold is a good conductor of heat and electricity. Natsu was confused, so she added that basically, even though Natsu's attacks didn't seem to be working, they actually were. Minerva then asked if they could give their magic to him, and Wendy volunteered to use her enchantment to give all their magic to Natsu. Urza agreed and told Natsu they were all counting on him. Natsu smiled at this and said he didn't need it, charging in again while saying he was now getting fired up, leaving them all dumbfounded. Sting and Rogue were taken aback, and Gray commented that this was just how Natsu was, while Urza said they had no choice but to give him their magic by force. Lucy could only cry and facepalm, while Wendy said she understood Urza. Natsu ran towards the metal dragon god to attack. Again, he said he was all fired up. Sting was very annoyed and asked why Natsu was always like that. Rogue asked if he had never heard the word cooperation. Minerva then asked Urza if Natsu really never listens, and she confirmed it was true. Wendy said she would gather all their magic and try to give it to Natsu by force. Yukino and Lucy agreed with this plan. But Gray commented that Natsu was such a pain. The Exceeds talked among themselves, with Happy asking if they thought Natsu would need their magic too. Carla replied that it would surely help, even if just a little. Meanwhile, Natsu used the Fire Dragon Slayer magic spell, Fire Dragon's Talons, to kick Viernes powerfully. However, it seemed to have no effect on the metal god, who pushed Natsu back, sending him flying. Both prepared to attack each other. Suddenly, Viernes slammed Natsu to the ground, who was struggling to fight back. He buried him in the ground while the wizards surrounded Wendy to pass their power to Natsu. Surprisingly, Natsu managed to get up and climb the hand, moving towards the metal god's arm. He clung to its body until he reached its head. Natsu gathered flame in his fist and used Fire Dragon's demolishing strike, hitting Viernes' head. Wendy and the others were still concentrating with their eyes closed, whereas Natsu was fighting the metal dragon god alone. Natsu couldn't easily bring him down. Suddenly, the dragon's eyes glowed and it released a powerful golden breath from its mouth. It was seen hitting the ground, causing a massive explosion. Fortunately, Natsu managed to avoid that attack. Meanwhile, now that Wendy had gathered everyone's power, she enchanted to give it to Natsu. He was surprised when he felt their combined magic. Natsu looked at them and insisted he didn't need it anymore. But while he was looking at them, Viernes suddenly punched him in the face. The attack was so strong that it sent Natsu straight underground. The visibly drained Lucy and Gray were worried. They said he should have kept his eyes on the dragon. From underground, Natsu raised his fist and said that since they had made the effort to give it to him, he would accept it. He suddenly burst out from below, engulfed in flames, saying he would take care of it. The wizard smiled at this. Natsu punched the metal dragon god's body, but it was extremely hard. So, he decided to turn everyone's magic into fire. He wanted to burn it and release even hotter fire from his fist. He used all his strength and finally, he managed to crack the metal dragon god's scale. It gradually shattered. Sting and Rogue were shocked that Natsu had smashed it. Even the Exceeds were cheering for Natsu. Because of that crack, Natsu followed up with a series of powerful punches to different parts of its body. Lucy watched speechlessly, remembering Athena. She couldn't help but tear up while wishing for Natsu's success. Natsu was giving it his all with every punch he released and didn't stop attacking Viernes. The fire Natsu unleashed was so intense that it illuminated the entire surroundings. The smoke was thick due to Natsu's blazing attacks, and he was pleased with his success. However, Viernes' eyes still glimmered. When the smoke cleared, it was revealed that Viernes hadn't been completely defeated. He looked at Natsu and planted his hand on the ground to stand up. Natsu smiled because it seemed weakened, and the wizards with him were also pleased. However, it was surprising when Viernes suddenly sprouted wings and prepared to fly into the sky. They were shocked when he flew, thinking he was escaping, but Urza said he looked like he was preparing to attack. Sting and the others were nervous because their magic was depleted. Rogue added that they had given it all to Natsu. They had no choice but to rely on Natsu and trust him. Wendy and the Exceeds cheered for Natsu. Natsu then jumped, and suddenly Happy was seen helping him fly. They rose quickly to reach Viernes. However, the dragons suddenly started glowing. The light was so bright that Natsu and Happy had to close their eyes. He seemed to rain down extremely powerful pillars of light, and even the wizards below were concerned and tried to avoid them. Lucy was surprised when she suddenly noticed the sky. It had turned golden. Everyone was wondering what was happening. Gray commented on the amount of energy needed for that. Jalal added that the power to do that was truly that of a god. Viernes spoke to Natsu, telling him to know his place as human. Happy was surprised that the metal dragon god spoke, but Natsu had expected it. Viernes added that humans were not worthy to face a dragon god. He attacked them, but Natsu and Happy dodged. Viernes called them an eyesore and wanted them gone. Again, an extremely bright light enveloped the area and the surroundings gradually cracked. The wizards were puzzled when they noticed their bodies turning to gold. Urza said it planned to trap them so Viernes could shoot them down. Even Minerva struggled to escape using the power she had left. They were frustrated by what happened, and Lucy called out to Natsu. But even those in the sky couldn't escape it. They were gradually turning to gold too. Happy struggled because they were getting heavier, but Natsu told him he could do it. He ordered Happy to fly him straight into the dragon god's throat so he could deliver everyone's magic. So they flew closer to Viernes. The wizards below wondered about their move, anxious about what might happen. Meanwhile, Lucy was confident that Natsu would succeed, while Happy responded with his usual "Aye, sir." However, Viernes prepared to release a powerful breath again. Natsu told Happy to throw him there now. Happy was suddenly confused when he realized Natsu wanted to be thrown directly into the dragon's breath. Natsu just replied to trust him, so Happy let go and Natsu went straight into the middle of the dragon's breath towards its throat. They couldn't believe what he had done and became concerned for Natsu. Natsu said that when he closed his eyes, he see Athena's face. Viernes didn't expect this attack while Lucy just stared at Natsu. Natsu mentioned that Athena should have a future, but chose to merge with him so they could defeat Viernes. He wondered if he could feel Athena inside him. Natsu shouted that he could hear her. She had told him to use those flames. He trusted that and ate what Viernes had breathed out. Everyone below was shocked, and Gray said that breath wasn't gold, but golden flames. Jalal paused, remembering something. Carla smiled when she realized they were flames, meaning they would make Natsu even stronger. Viernes hadn't expected this. Urza noticed that this intensified Natsu's power even more. So, he used the Fire Dragon King's demolishing strike directly on its head, and it was so powerful that it shattered Viernes' head. Finally, Natsu succeeded, and the wizards below smiled. In another place, a circular tablet was seen glowing and smoking, signaling that the metal dragon god had finally been sealed away. Eleftheria was saddened because Athena was gone for this to happen. Standing in front of the tablet, Eleftheria apologized, saying he was one of those who brought Athena into this world. He touched the tablet and said that everything was about to end. Only one of the 5 dragon gods remained, and that was Ignia, the fire dragon god. The 100 Years quest would finally be completed after more than a century. Fairy Tail would complete the most difficult job in the magical world. Back at the metal dragon god, we then see Viernes' body was gradually disintegrating. The cracked gold fell to the ground, and it rained shimmering gold. Sting was overjoyed because of this. While Gray couldn't believe that Viernes was really made of gold, Rogue said it seemed to be the case. Meanwhile, Lucy was concerned for Natsu. Happy approached the kneeling Natsu and asked how he was. He smiled and said that's 4 down. Now, only Ignia remained. On the side, Sting couldn't believe the amount of gold there and said they were rich now. Minerva added that they would get a large payment if they sold it. Urza was surprised that they planned to take it home. Minerva replied naturally. Besides, it was a job for Fairy Tail, but Sabretooth wasn't paid for it. Even Lecter wanted to take the gold home, while Frosh ate one, so Yukino scolded him. Wendy then asked Carla if Frosh knew that was the dragon's body. Carla replied that Frosh didn't care anyway, calling him an idiot. While watching the wizards discuss from a distance, Carla spoke to Wendy, saying that the Gold Owl Guild was just an illusion, including its members. It was like Kate's shelter, she said. Wendy replied that they were very different. Kate's shelter was an illusion created out of love. Jalal then noticed something moving under the crushed rocks, so he asked who was there. Suddenly, two figures appeared, and Urza was surprised when she recognized them. They were the Signario sisters, Onii and Luzu. Urza couldn't believe they were still alive, while Gray asked if they weren't just illusions too. Luzu said they were the Signario sisters. Onii added that while they were traveling, someone stole their minds away. Because of that, they couldn't remember anything, Luzu said. Wendy couldn't believe that Viernes had controlled their minds. Onii was surprised when she heard Viernes' name. She realized what had happened, saying Viernes knew they were enemies. Jalal and the others were puzzled that they were enemies of the Metal Dragon God. Luzu confirmed this. Onii introduced themselves as disciples of the Fire Dragon God. They smiled and said they were members of Fire and Flame. They were confused when they heard about the Fire Dragon God, so Natsu asked if they were Ignia's companions. Based on his appearance, it seemed they were enemies too, Luzu said. She asked her older sister if they should fight them now. Onii replied not yet, and that they should return to the Fire God's castle. They had been gone for quite a while, and since they didn't seem to have much choice, Luzu bid farewell to them. Urza and the others couldn't respond. Suddenly, there was a powerful explosion, and when the smoke cleared, the two were gone. They were surprised by this and wondered if the sisters were wizards too. Gray hadn't expected Ignia to have human allies. Wendy agreed, saying it didn't seem right. Urza said that if they were to fight Ignia, they would surely face Onii and Luzu again. Someone then called out to Lucy from behind, which surprised her. It was Athena too approaching her. Urza and the others were surprised, and Happy said that was the bad Athena. However, Lucy protected her and said to wait. Athena smiled while Lucy teared up. Lucy knew this was the Athena they knew, and she said that was correct. Somehow, her consciousness and personality had transferred to Athena 2's body. Urza and the others were shocked by this. Lucy hugged Athena tightly and said she didn't care how she got there. She just welcomed her back. Athena replied that she had indeed returned. The wizards were delighted by this. Carla mentioned it was like Irene's magic, but Wendy said she hadn't done it. It might not have been done by magic. The scene showed a house in the middle of a forest where Zalem was sitting. Wendy added that it could also be due to the power of love. The next day, the Sabretooth members said goodbye to return to their guild, carrying sacks of gold. At some point, the fake Duke simply vanished. As they had expected, it seemed to be just an illusion created by Viernes. Elefsiria took in Athena, and now she was living as a human. She had also become good at smiling. Now, the Fairy Tale Guild members are off to find the remaining one of the 5 dragon gods, Ignia. They now had a clue about where to find him, and that was the Fire God's castle.